Good. All right, let's bring the meeting to order. Start with the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, to the republic which stands one nation. All right. Let's start with the consent agenda. Anything anybody wants pulled? What's that? Oh, there it is. Sorry about that. All right, do we have a motion to open public hearing? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I have a question about item number 2 for the extraordinary circumstances BOE meeting. Something was just not clear to me.
Say again, only a little louder.
On the, sorry, on the procedures for video conference for extraordinary circumstances. Something was just not clear to me on that I had a question about.
Okay,
When a board member is appearing virtually and it is advertised where they are a location where other public members can attend and it goes into executive session, what happens when they're in the back?
what we're doing is we're setting our rules for this. In my opinion, that rule, that whole posting your address thing goes.
Oh.
And this is just my take on it. It's not required as far as I can tell. And I don't like the fact that, you know, we're telling people we're not home. You know, oh, my house is empty, so, you know.
Or that we
I
are?
don't,
Yes.
and it's unnecessary. I mean, to me, so to me, that's one of the things that needs to be deleted from it.
Oh, okay.
So this is more, it's not really about just approving these. It's more about, you know, what are we saying? Like, it says extraordinary circumstance. In my opinion, if you have to travel for business or you have to travel for any reason, you should be able to tie in remotely. We, I think, need to have a quorum in the room, but we don't need to have, you know, it should not be, this should not be painful because you know, you gotta put your address on there and maybe have somebody stop by your hotel room. You know, that's ridiculous. So, so do I have it all in favor of opening the public session, and we'll talk about this? All, everybody? Are you good?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so, well, I sort of already gave you my opinion on this thing. What do you guys think?
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Section 7 is, the postmates, within 2 weeks. You want to change that to within 2 weeks for the next regular board meeting? We don't adopt our minutes until the following board meeting. So
That's a good, yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So,
So our minutes are posted as soon as they're on here now.
Mhm.
So, it is, that our meetings are every 2 weeks, so it is every 2 weeks, so.
so is this, but the,
Sometimes in the summer they are.
yeah.
Yeah.
that's all I think.
Yeah.
That's the only-
I mean, can we just add that in there?
Yes, you can.
Okay, all right, so let's add that in there.
And then
Let's-
One other question was in section 8, it says that we'll provide transcripts on request. You want to provide transcripts?
I don't like.
No.
We provide recording.
Yeah,
That's not right before.
Yeah.
For 5 years. On request,
Yeah.
a link with the meeting will be available.
yeah, why don't, I mean, look,
Well, it is transcribed online. It's transcribed, meaning printed.
yeah, I,
Word for word.
Well,
Why
as
don't we
one who
just-
listens to 1950s radio, they always say transcribed by, and So if it's voice transcription, it's the same thing as written.
why can't we just take that line out of there
Right.
on request?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go to the website, and listen to it
Correct.
anytime you want. I don't think we need to.
It's voice transcription as well as written transcription because of the minutes that Cheryl makes. So, so both are being provided, so we don't need upon request. Because
The only thing that worries me with the word transcript,
Mhm.
if it's written, our minutes are sort of a summary. It doesn't say, Perry said this, and then
Yes.
he, then he
I
yawned
see what
because
you're
he was.
saying.
It doesn't say any of that, you know what I mean? So I would just take that line out of there. And, they're available online.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, the question that I have was number 13 and talks more about. Like if a member of the public has comments, they can use the raised hand. Must wait until authorized to speak by the chair. I mean, that's if we're fully remote. Right now, they post the question, right? If it's just online.
Yeah.
So you may want to just be clear about that. I don't want people trying to raise their hand.
Yeah, and I mean, this is really for us to go. For board members to tie in remotely. It's not,
Right.
if we had to go back for some reason to fully remote. We'd have to go back and probably take care of some of this, but even when we were fully remote, we weren't having them raise their hands. They were writing their questions.
They can't sign into our
Right,
Zoom.
right.
meeting.
Right.
Right.
So we just got the last one.
So yeah, if we can. So if we take members of the public wishing to provide public comments. Must, and then whatever they're supposed to do, put it into
Yep.
wherever they go.
Part D, I think that's supposed to say participants must mute themselves, not remote themselves, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Minor.
Which we'll take out anyway. That's all.
Automatically muted.
Yeah, they can't really interact at all, I don't believe, on our current. Zoom.
They don't, the public
Yeah.
can't at
They
all.
can just submit.
So you just take that
So
line
take
out.
that out too. Yeah.
So why don't we start at the top? Number one. So. All right, so if a board member, and we leave the first one, my opinion, you guys tell me if you don't agree. First one should be fine. Second one,
Written request.
yeah,
Oh, right, I was wondering that.
right, see. Yeah, I mean. That should be fine. I would just say, get it to myself or Chris.
Is this number 2? Ron?
Yeah.
For reasonable time, can that be maybe just at discretion of the president or vice president based on the circumstances? Because, or is that kind of implied in there? So for example, if I have a caregiver matter that falls through kind of last minute, for me,
Yeah.
that might be different.
Or take it just
Yeah, I mean,
prior to the meeting. I mean, something, an emergency can happen 10 minutes before. Do we need reasonable time?
All life happens.
Right.
I mean, if something happens right before or on your way here and you can't make it, just notify us.
I don't know who really wrote this, whether it was somebody from, it doesn't look like it was a lawyer, but hopefully it was somebody from the open, the open meetings law, but looking at number 2 again, go back to the member, meaning a board member, may submit a written request, and then then it goes on to, after it says that's not open to the public, then it goes, the request must be submitted at a reasonable time. May means you don't have to.
Right.
So either should, because life does happen, like Chris said.
Yeah.
Members should request, submit. a
Yeah,
written
just
request.
change should, to may to should. And then we'll use our own discretion, you know. As to, you know, I mean, like you said, this has to be. With the understanding that we're doing our best to get it. But if somebody has, suddenly a child gets sick. You know, what are you gonna do? You just, or you just don't attend the meeting and then we have to come up with quorums even though, you know, we don't have the people, so.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
more of the repeat. Like, if you're not at 6 different board meetings in a row, then the board might question.
But that's the same thing that goes with attendance in general. All right, so we'll just change that to should. Extraordinary circumstances, number 3. Illness, disability, caregiver, bereavement. Business requirements. So, well, they call, I think the state called it, the state called out, there must be extraordinary circumstances. It's up to us to define what those are.
I wouldn't say vacation, extraordinary circumstances, but, I
Well,
mean, that's,
I think,
that does happen.
I mean, if you're, you know, we're supposed to go all summer long.
Right.
People have vacations.
It's just extraordinary, meaning out of the ordinary.
Yes.
Right.
Right, extra. board.
Yes.
Just to jump back to number 2, are we removing the end which says the public is invited to attend?
But we got rid of that.
Yes.
To be present, that I would just take everything after the word present. To be physically present. Boom, take out that designated location in person or by video, blah, 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 blah. So we'll add to number 3, we'll add. Business related or travel in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. Travel and then how about personal commitments? You know, if you end up having to, well, again, if you end up having to babysit somebody, they're sleeping, but you still have to be there.
Prior person.
All right, so far so good. Number 4, at least quorum needs to be in the meeting in physical location. And I'm assuming we don't have to put a note like unless, you know, unless we have to go fully remote. I think we just leave that out. Hopefully we don't. I think that's fine. Except that in case of exactly remember. Sure. This been. I mean, I don't even know why you have to put all the, you know, use video conferencing software. No, I thought we'd get tin cans of string. But. Is number 5 okay with everybody?
For number 4, a quorum includes not just at the physical location in person together, it includes, does not, okay.
Right,
Okay.
we need.
Yeah.
To have a real meeting, we have to have 4 people here.
Okay,
I mean, we let everybody know that we're using video conference every time anyway. For number 6,
But in number 5, are we like saying that we have to have our name somewhere on there?
Mhm.
you mean on the screen?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or right in front of you. or something like
Yeah. no more putting Tucker's name on. So we good with 5?
The end of 5, like. I don't know if we want to get too detailed, but if it's, staticky and the person keeps cutting in and out, would that kind of disqualify them from continuing to be in the meeting?
I mean. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into, personally, I don't really want to get into. Geez, Jen, your phone's got some crackling in it, leave the meeting. I mean, I would hope you dial in and try it again or something. But I don't really want to get into,
Throughout the year and a half, we really have an issue.
yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, actually, if you just got rid of if you put a period after promote participation. And got rid of will not be permitted to participate in the meeting, that might be better. Yeah. Basically, you're saying the quality should be good enough here to be heard and seen.
I think what they're trying to say is, for some reason. If we can't hear you or you can't hear us, you have to get off. I mean,
Right.
It's voting.
yeah.
Or it could be someone else sitting there, not you. if they
Yeah.
got it down.
Mhm.
Alright.
Number 11 again says which the public may attend.
Sorry.
Number 11. Oh, I'm sorry, we're on 7.
Board members will pay attention to the number. Have to have a procedure or something. Everybody good with 2 of those changes? I mean 7. 2 of those changes. Number 8.
What did you use before you two?
Didn't.
Oh,
I didn't know.
issue. Another situation where we need to hold it down.
If we have to hold a meeting, if there's, say there's a person's name, and then
Could do that within 5 days? Yes. 5 days long. 5 business days.
Yeah.
If
We
you,
have to pull the meeting down. from these two. We've done it.
Oh, for.
is that it?
Action.
Enough time?
Alright. So number 8, we're cool. Number 9. I mean, the only place we're saying it's gonna be open for public is here. So this is kind of a, waste of words, but it doesn't affect the fact that that's the only public place we're gonna publish.
And we don't let them provide public comment in real time. It's virtually.
They put them into, type them in, and then when we get to that section, we read them out.
So that would be then removed.
Questions from the public.
No, I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming our video conferencing is consistent with the ADA, make it ADA compliant. I'm assuming so. Yeah, I don't know what else to.
Closed caption.
sometime, but I think you can.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Elliot, subtitles are after the.
Zoom does have an integrated transcription closed captioning feature. We can activate.
Okay.
Use it already.
Okay.
The existing authority set forth. Yeah,
So number 11 is the same then if I'm, hotel or public company.
I think it's saying you can designate second. Doesn't necessarily have. But that's the way I actually. think we would say this is not a publication. But I don't.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like that. I mean, you could read it sort of either way, right?
I'd almost change it to location, better the location and set forth. But it's saying it's video conferencing the board members.
But it's saying from which members of the public may attend.
I'm
Right, so I
reading
think
it
that's
as it's
the remote.
referring back to the,
Yeah.
location
Post your address.
of
and
the
everything.
public. No.
But we're
of the
not doing
public
that.
meeting.
No, I know, that's what I'm saying.
Right, I think that's what this
Location.
was intended, like, in other words, you can't make them sit out on the front porch and listen through the window. But we're not doing that.
That could,
Why do we even need this one? People do not know the existing authority set forth.
I don't know.
Which allows video conferencing of board members.
You don't need them because it's not, the only place it's gonna be set forth in the notice.
Yeah.
The meeting is gonna be public session, which is here.
So. Video conferencing of board members. Yeah, why don't we just delete number 11? You good with that?
Do you know what you think?
Sure. So I would be fine with leaving it, but I do see David's point, and I think when I was reading in conjunction with the prior paragraphs, if we take those out, maybe we just need to clarify. As David mentioned, just locations that. Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm trying to think of a way to
Yeah.
word it.
I don't know how it refers to set forth in the open meeting law. Which allows video conferencing by board members on locations that are set forth in the notice of the meeting. But if our location. If our location is actually just here,
Right.
right?
right. You want to, you can change it to the designated location. where you can
from the
have
loca-
members of the
right.
public.
The designated location, right.
I mean, video conferencing by board members.
not
Yeah,
location.
but see, that's saying. The video conferencing by board members.
And if it's talking about
Maybe
where we're at, we're not
period.
gonna post that anyway,
Right.
so that you can then second.
That's what I'm saying, I don't,
Can we just put a period after
And then who,
oh
board
no,
members?
or
and then locations. are
procedures
set
do not
forth.
limit the existing authority set forth in the open meeting law.
Which allows.
Let video conferencing by board members, period.
Yeah, all right,
Because we've already kind of defined all of that before. and, yeah.
right, so period after members. Delete the rest of it. Of course, you're gonna take this to Margo and she's gonna. Tell you it doesn't work. All right, number 12. This is basically if we have to go really small.
Mhm.
All right, that's okay.
13, so we're just gonna remove completely except A, and just. Yeah, I forget what we said, we're gonna change this.
Yeah.
I would just say that they have to post their questions, just explain how they have to. Submit a question.
So you can just add that, change number A and get rid of the rest of it.
Number.
Number A, yeah.
What?
Oh,
Gotta be.
where's the bullet that talks about members that are wide?
For 12, do we want to have a catch-all in the event there is such an emergency? And kind of setting forth what would happen, or would that be a whole new thing we would have to create?
They would have to adjust the open meetings law to allow us to do it.
Yeah, because remember that through that whole COVID thing, they suspended the open meeting law.
Mhm.
So. Yeah, we have to almost. I guess I just would worry about it.
Okay.
Hopefully, we don't have to do that. Ever.
These last words.
All right, so that's the first hearing, right?
Possible comments.
What's that? We have
I don't,
no public comment?
No.
Okay. Um. So. Do we approve this procedure? Or do we need to take it back to Margot before we vote on?
Could approve it pending legal review.
Yep.
That's probably the best way to go.
All right. All right, so do I have a motion to approve procedures for Board of Education extraordinary circumstances for video conferencing
Pending review by our legal.
pending legal review?
I'll make the motion.
All right.
I'll
thank
second.
you. Thank you. All right, any discussion? All in favor? Any against? All right, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
so moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any against? All right, now. Back to the consent agenda. Anything anyone wants? Hold, to make a separate motion out of, or wait until we get into it to discuss. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make the motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Are there any questions, comments on any of these? All in favor? Aye. Any against? All right. The audit, committee review, do I have a motion to accept the, or approve the action plan?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Comments, questions, concerns?
Just have one question. The corrective action for number one, the segregation of duties. I understand the issue is basically that we were short staffed.
Correct.
Is there any corrective action that we would take? That ourselves short staffed again, is there somebody else we can designate as the approval outside the business office or?
I think it would probably depend on the circumstances, on who was missing in that piece. And if there was somebody with a matching skill set that could step in there. I think it would be situational. The ideal would never to have overlap in these positions because of the ideal system of checks and balances, so to speak, that happens. To certify all the business office functions, the situation we were in, we just didn't have the availability of persons.
Well, certainly wasn't for lack of trying.
No,
Yeah, no, I understand,
No.
but it's been a while, I feel like we'd be there again.
I mean, I think we're gonna be in a little bit of a different position now because we'll have, a local retiree. Who could potentially factor in if we needed, like a temporary auditor or something. She's not leaving the area and she is willing to help the district out, so. I feel like on a case by case basis, we may have options at this point that we didn't have in the past, if that makes sense.
But it
Even if
probably,
were to happen again, I mean, they could always do a second, review with you or Elliot, or just to sign off that someone, witnessed it. I mean, if all else fails.
Yeah, and I
Right.
mean, after that certification happens, there is another step where someone else is signing off on it.
I mean, we're just really gonna have to watch, because it's a small district and we can always end up doing things. Where we ask person A to do this job because somebody else left. We just have to pay more attention, I think, to making sure we don't get ourselves in those situations. Anything else? All right, all in favor? Aye. Any against? All right, so next is the leadership reports. I wanted to just use this opportunity to give the folks that went to NISBA a chance, talk about things they've seen, talk about, you know, things that you learned, especially things that maybe we really need to look at faster than later. So, Chris, Howard,
Yeah, I mean, I'll start. The three of us spent a couple days in Syracuse and we kind of tried to split off and we didn't really see each other until the end of the day, just so we can kind of see different seminars. A lot of what I went to is just, you know, had a lot to do with mental health strategies, statistics, general conversations as far as what's happening in schools, you know, how to overcome certain issues. I also attended just general board knowledge. I attended the strategic plan seminar as far as just plans of the different districts, and there was some stuff on STEAM as well that I sat down with, but it was heavily to do with mental health, a lot of the meetings. But I'll pass it on to Nina.
Yeah, so thank you so much for the opportunity to go. I learned so much. I loved all the presentations that I attended. One of the first presentations I attended was from physician to legislation. And so that actually came in perfect timing because I was just coming out of the resolution. So I was actually going to just summarize my notes and email it to everyone as well. I don't know if you want me to do that. But essentially, I think we also got an email about the upcoming lobbying days for NISBA in Albany. If we want I think we have a legislative committee with Howard to attend and maybe bring some students to that or get some students input on that. I did attend some of the collective bargaining presentations. That was really interesting because I really didn't have that much of an idea about what goes on in that, and essentially if we would want someone from the board to be present on there or not. And so I have notes on that from what they were saying about the parameters of collective bargaining. I attended the two last and most memorable presentations, I would say, were a capstone project presentation about civic engagement, and then another one of supporting student culture. And I went to the presenter. It was students that were presenting from different schools for both, but they had an adult who was helping them along. And I went to her and I said, you know, can we get your contact? And she said, where are you from? And I said, Millbrook. And she said, oh, I've already been in touch with Dr. Amy Watkins. I was like, awesome, that's perfect, thank you. And it was so exciting to see the civic engagement project that these high schoolers were working on. And then my last presentation, I think that I went to, was responsibilities of board members, which also came just in time because I just had my first training session on Saturday. And then at the expo, I think also I saw Howard given some of these, so there may be duplicates, but I picked up some things that I thought might be helpful that I could give to Dr. Watkins and Elliot, maybe Carolyn. So one is about the middle school, elementary school exit survey. And they said that Millbrook actually did participate in it a few years ago. They had our name on the list. I don't know if we have an app, but there was a booth about creating an app for in conjunction for our website. I won't go through all of them. There's one about farm to table, bringing that into the cafeteria. And there was one about like heating and cooling that I thought was cool that I thought I would give to Elliot. So I'll hand those out during the break, but yeah, overall, if next year, I think everyone should go if they can, because I learned so much and I got to meet people in person who I saw online in the resolutions. So thank you.
Yeah, that farm to table, I'm hoping to get Vassar College, their gardens. They do a lot with Poughkeepsie, but they do this whole farm to table. You know, they grow it, they show you how to make your own gardens. I like that they presented Dutchess County School Board probably 4 years ago. I'd like to get them to come out and take us through
So in the legislative committee, and just because it's been coming up here for, they were mentioning about, sometimes they email us or on their website, they have something that is part of their perspective. And so right now it's the free lunch perspective to try and get school to do that again. And they basically said, if you want to get on board with that, and you can just take that sample letter they have, put it on our website or email it to parents. I know Jen had brought that up. Of course, I don't know if it's something we wanted to circle back to, but they said sometimes for the legislative, committee, they'll have different agendas on there that we want to be a part of it.
Right. With the legislative committee, even though we're not talking about that. I've been part of several legislative committees where we were zooming with Senator Schumer and with Congressman who now current Lieutenant Governor Delgado. So we have been part of that, and that's been continuing with our local reps, and will continue after elections today into the next new year with whoever is currently be our representatives. But circling back to the conference, this was the third conference that I've been to. I missed the other two because there was no other two due to COVID. I never ceased to stop learning, always learn things that are which are good for the children, good for the district, good for the taxpayer. One of them, the highlights were that I attended a ambassador, how to be an ambassador for the school district. And every child, every one of our students is an ambassador for this district. Every parent is an ambassador. Obviously, every employee is an ambassador. And they need to go forward and either be happy with the district, or if they're not happy, we need to try to rectify it and keep everybody as happy as they can be, because they are our best barometer, whether we're doing a good job in education or whether we're not. Now going back to shooting off to these middle school exit survey and graduate follow-up surveys. Several years back, we had a 8th grade class of 86, I believe, students, and 13 of them ended up not going to our high school. So 10 of them, I believe, at the time went to Our Lady of Lourdes High School. So that raised a lot of flags because 10 out of 86 is a large number, large percentage number of students. So we did have to do a middle school exit survey. It was done by Principal Cabela. And again, I don't know how accurate the final results were. Not every child did respond. I know he made every attempt to contact parents and the children. So seeing this did pique my interest and is worth looking at, because why are we losing, other than the obvious reasons about sports programs and such, why are we losing students to the private Catholic school as well as other schools? The graduate follow-up survey would be a nice senior, and a senior exit survey might be another wonderful idea. It will involve our seniors, and it'd also be nice to find out after 2 years or 1 year what some of our graduates are doing, and possibly see if they're willing to come back and we'll talk to our 9th graders or things like that, to show what they learned in our school district and what they're able to move forward with real life world. I did find out, switching gears, and I did provide to Elliot that the OGS, which is the New York State Office of General Services, I learned that they also provide bids. We can go to BOCES, which we can go through on COSERS with BOCES, and a lot of times New York State Office of General Services can provide the same items, possibly for less. So we have more than one thing to look at. We don't have to look at BOCES. we can look at, see who the lowest bidder is, and that would save money for the taxpayer. And Elliot, like Elliot, we might not have to go out to bid for something because we can go straight to New York State for it. So I did learn that, and I did provide Mr. Garcia with a May 10th, I believe, up in Albany. State is hosting a what can we do for the school districts? How can we sell more things to you? They seem to be getting involved. Office of General Services in New York State seems to be wanting to get involved in competing with BOCES. And it's wonderful because it's wonderful. It's a win-win for the district. It's a win-win for our taxpayers. And again, I look forward to attending next year's conference. Every conference opens up a new door to wealth of information. Thank you.
Did have one more thing that kind of stood out to me, around the mental health. I mean, obviously, as we all know, relationships are huge for kids with mental health issues. The more relationships and the better relationships they have, the less issues potentially they have with mental health. And a lot of times kids, their relationship is with a lot of their teachers. They build relationships and bonds with them. So one point that the speaker made was in May of 21, they asked 14,000 educators. In May of 21, 24% were significantly, that showed significant levels of burnout. In July of 22, there's 61% of educators showed significant burnout. So the point was, we can't take care of our kids if we're not taking care of our teachers. So it was kind of an eye-opening thing that I figured I'd bring back and share. I'm sure we do take care of our teachers, but it's just something to be aware of.
Very good. Any questions, Jen, Chris?
Thank
Okay.
you all for
Yeah, thank you, guys.
attending and reporting. I'm gonna join you next.
And one of the things we talked about at things at the agenda meeting was looking for software that would, create a list when things are due and then, mark them complete. Do you remember seeing anything like that in the, in those booths? Software that might do stuff like that?
No.
Yeah, we gotta,
Unlike the last time, Perry, when we went up to Rochester, this particular event where they had the exhibitors in the hall was not so technological. It was more geared for surveys, electric buses, safety. Right. It was not as technologically set up as it was when we were up.
because I remember they had an entire, I'll say aisle that was dedicated to pre-K, like, getting touch and feel and software that, I don't even know what you did with it. Like, there was a bubble that you had to run chasing around the floor. But there was a lot of interesting stuff for pre-K. And of course, like an idiot, I signed, oh yeah, send me some stuff. And my email gets full like in an hour now. But, well, good. I'm glad you guys had a good time. It really is a great place to make connections to other districts, other resources. Very good. Okay. Caroline?
Okay, so good evening, everyone. First, with personnel, I want to congratulate our new principal account clerk. So this will help to keep the business office running. Paige has been in the district for, I believe, 4 years now, and she was an excellent addition when she joined the PPS office, and she'll be an excellent addition in the business office as well. Elliot is leading the charge in bringing in a new supervisor of digital fluency and data privacy. We have received a couple of applications and we'll be setting up some interviews to hopefully bring in a new thought partner in the area of technology. We are currently working on our beds report. So that's basically all of the statistical data that schools report to the state. It's based on one day in October, sort of to standardize everything. It's based on your enrollment at that time, your employment at that time. And that is due for submission on November 18th. So we're working with all of the schools have their own separate forms, and then the district has one form collectively that we provide to the state, and that's where all of our enrollment data is triggered from. So it's sort of like the standard count of all of our students, staff, et cetera. We are currently seeking a senior typist for the People Personnel Services Department that will help with the Committee on Special Education and the Committee on Preschool Special Education. So if you know of anyone that is qualified for that position, we encourage them to apply. We are also working on some Department of Health surveys. I'm sure you are aware that there have been polio outbreaks, or cases of polio in the region. So each school district essentially is required to report generalized percentages to ensure that everyone is properly vaccinated. And therefore the Department of Health can respond if there are any areas that need attention in terms of vaccination sites, et cetera. Amy's going to speak more about some of the trainings that have been going on. We've been really excited. I mentioned at last meeting that we had all of our IDEI grants targeting special education, prevention of special education referrals. And also some of the rescue grants aligned with that. We've received their approval, so we've been able to make some purchases, which is really exciting. And with that, we've been able to look at aligned curriculum, some of the advances that we want to make. We're able to provide in the high school. We'll be doing a one-to-one graphing calculator initiative, starting with students in 9th grade, and then rolling that up. I know it sounds like graphing calculator one-to-one, but it is kind of hard if you're in a math classroom and you have students with 5 different calculators when you're trying to explain to them how to use your calculator. You can spend a lot of time on how-tos for technology rather than teaching concepts and reinforcing that. So by standardizing that and giving all students access to a quality device that it's Regents approved, they can use it on the SATs. So we will have like a loaner contract with those students. So we're pretty excited about that.
Is there a reason where can they not use, like, I have my calculator on my computer. You can't use it on the
No.
exams.
No. And actually, just parents, if you're not aware, ACTs and SATs actually ban certain calculators. So it also has to be one, it wouldn't make sense to teach them on this calculator and then they go for those, college entrance exams and can't take it. So we're just trying to standardize that and make it a somewhat universal experience where we can for students. We have started our formal observation process as well as weekly learning walks as administrative team. So we're really excited about that. And I will be meeting with council this week to propose some updates to our APPR. So we'll be working with the teachers union on that as well. So I had mentioned a couple of meetings ago that we received word as the county superintendents that Dutchess Community College was going to be implementing some course fees for tuition for our students. Historically speaking, and really as the group of superintendents, as far back as anyone can remember in Dutchess County, we've been really fortunate where we've had a zero-sum arrangement with Dutchess. And how I'll explain that is Dutchess would bill us for tuition and we would bill them back for the theoretical use of our space, the fact that we employ the instructor, all of the materials that are used, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it was basically a wash, right? So at this point, what we're understanding initially, this was proposed to start in spring of 2023. So like in 2 months. And we were like, we can't actually do that because there's been no notice to students. They're already enrolled in these classes. It would be a tremendous amount of juggling and alterations in the master schedule that quite frankly would be crippling. So Dutchess was understanding that they would hold off into the fall. And in further conversations with the superintendents, we've decided that this is really sort of our passion project. I think everyone is equally as passionate about this, and so we're going to advocate to try and do everything that we can to not have this happen. Just today, I met with the College and High School Alliance, which is a national organization that is actually looking at all of the equity aspects of trying to offer these programs to high school students, because we know that students who are exposed to advanced courses in high school are more likely to go on to college and are more likely to complete college. And so we feel as though it's our duty to at least do the best we can to advocate for this. Understanding that we're not fully in control, but we have letters that we have crafted that are going out to various different folks that can help, both local and state government agencies, Board of Regents, the commissioner. So it's sort of where, like me being a dog with a bone, I'm not letting this one go. And we've also gotten the Putnam County superintendents, we've been in contact with them because they also do send their students to both to Dutchess County Community College, because they don't have their own community college down there. So we're going to work together on this. Like I said, we have waived this till fall. We don't, as of right now, even know what the proposed tuition cost would be. Our understanding is it would be 1/3 tuition. What we don't know is 1/3 of what, because so because of the fact that their tuition may go up, we will be paying 1/3 of some number, possibly. So more to come on that, but I did want to just start having this in the public.
Can you two get together with Kelly from the County School Board Association?
And we
I
met
mean,
with
they haven't
Jason.
even, this has never been brought up, it's never been explained. No one's ever come in and said, oh, the school's running short on money, so we have to do this. They should come into us as the Board of Education for all the districts within Dutchess County and explain.
Mhm.
And be able to justify, you can't just say we're not gonna do it anymore. I mean, you can, but obviously they
Right.
did. But if you can get with Kelly and see if you can't get them on the agenda, because that's gotta be a huge hit to like Arlington and Wappingers, the
Yeah.
amount of money that they're gonna have to pay. Okay,
So we're doing what we can to advocate there. Elliot and Ken met today with the Transportation Advisory and went over the bid specifications, which he'll talk more about. That was in response to the fact that we will be having to go out to bid for transportation services. We are still looking to fill a custodial position, and we are waiting the final quote for the postage machine rental. There was a request after last month's safety meeting to review the Alden dismissal procedures, and I do want to say that that did happen. We had representatives from the regional safety services and also New York State Police were there. Retired New York State Police, I should say. We also had obviously Deputy Freer from the Sheriff's Department. And they did come up with some proposals for ways in which we could potentially make that dismissal process smoother. So we will be continuing to review that to see what's the most feasible in terms of altering those processes without disrupting the traffic on Alden. So some of those things we just need to work out. We are in the process of a strategic plan, as many of you know. We met yesterday with all of the faculty members and got some input from the wider stakeholder community, the internal stakeholders. And we will be issuing a Blazer bulletin that will actually have a link for public participation from the community. So there will also be a video explaining how to use Jamboard, because the one thing that we were concerned about is when people are posting their submissions, we don't want them to inadvertently delete someone else's. So we're just going to be giving a little tutorial on how to use Jamboard, because if you're not familiar with it, sort of 2 wrong little double clicks and you could be deleting someone else's input, which we don't want to do. Inadvertently, you never know. We will be having coffee with the cabinet for the first time on the 17th, so that is a 7 a.m. opportunity to get together, have a cup of coffee, and just speak to the central office cabinet. With that being said, we have community circle, we have other opportunities in the evening. We're really just trying to reach parents who maybe, or, community members who maybe aren't available in the evenings, but would still like to have an opportunity to come chat, to join online. It is a hybrid opportunity, so, you can have your cup of coffee at home and we can just have a chat, or you can come on in and we'll provide the coffee. We have submitted all the documentation for our health inspections to the state, which is an annual requirement. We also have had, I believe, one health inspection of each building thus far. Yep, we're waiting on the reports from each of those, but I believe that they've completed one in each building thus far. And it was asked a couple of meetings ago about the culture survey that was provided to the community last year. We were able to find those results, and we have been reviewing them with the culture committee. So those results are actually being utilized. And then we have some really exciting news in the district right now. We have both the girls soccer team headed to the Final Four in Portland this weekend, and also an individual cross-country runner, Dylan Vasquez. He is a 9th grader, which is really amazing. He will be going back to the state championships this weekend as well. And unfortunately, this year, our girls volleyball suffered a really tough loss on Saturday. But they had a great season up until that point, and we just applaud all of their efforts. Our modified football season finished successfully under the lights the other day. We have winter sports signups underway, and for the first time in a couple of years, we actually have upwards of 15 students interested in a winter cheer team. So that is typically a competition cheer team that travels and enters competitions. So that's really exciting to see that coming back, because it's been quite a few years since we've been able to field a team. And then in funding opportunities, as I had mentioned, our grant application approvals have come back for all of the IDEA grants, and we have resubmitted the ESSA grants and the ARP grants, which were grants that were submitted over the summer and needed some tweaking, but are on their way to being approved as well. We met with the business office just to keep a review of all of our codes and just look at what's been spent thus far, and is there anywhere that we're running short, and maybe we need to look at transfers, etc. So we've done some of that, and then we had tonight 3 MEF grants that we're really excited were funded. So more information on that, but we have an elementary ukulele project, which is pretty cool. It's 4 grade levels. One of our new teachers is going to be doing this, and the older students will be able to take their ukuleles home for practice. So it'll be a couple of years of learning a new instrument. I love a ukulele. I think it's pretty cool that they're learning that, actually. I mean, I learned the recorder, that was about it. No one actually wants to play that when they get older, but ukulele is pretty cool. Flexible seating grant for 4th grade. So there's a diversity of needs that students have that make seating options in the classroom really enticing and actually really supportive of them being successful. So I think it's awesome. We've seen this in a couple of classrooms already, and I'm excited that Ms. Lab has decided to do this grant. It's been successful, and we're gonna expand that into her classroom as well. And then in the middle school, Ms. Morton has some technology that she is going to be purchasing, so students can design and actually create their own t-shirts. So I think that's really fun. They'll be able to see a design straight through to actual an actual product. So a lot of exciting stuff going on, and I look forward to sharing more as the weeks go by.
I know it's only been a couple weeks. Any updates on it all? The traffic.
I haven't heard anything. I'm hoping no news or good news, but I know that Mike and Alicia, Mike Freer and Alicia have been kind of all over it. So
Yep.
I'm hoping that we have some progress there, but I haven't heard anything negative.
Okay. I mean, we did hear that it's improved, but it sounded like there was still some room to go, so as long as we keep our eye on it. Okay, any questions for Caroline?
I just, not for Caroline, but the thing before, when we talked about the NISBA convention, it also said the regional symposium, is that the stress busters thing? Maybe we can let these guys go, and because I know Christina and myself were on that.
Okay.
That was extremely interesting. So we can wait until that.
All right,
That's all.
thank you. All right, what's up next?
Oh, yeah.
All right, Elliot.
All right, see, touch on a couple of things already from a technology perspective. We are working on the search for an individual fluency and data privacy supervisor. We're looking for that. Maybe get it very soon. We are our first tech committee meeting of the year. Really went over just where we left off last year with the submissions to the state. Our plan for this year is going to be a pretty significant focus on digital fluency learning standards, learning standards. This is our last year to figure it out before the first year of implementation next school year. So we have the rest of the year to work through it. We've already built up a good repository of information and ideas together. So hopefully our new administrator will be leading that charge for the rest of the year. We are looking into multi-factor authentication. So for many of you that do online banking or have a Google account that you have to use your cell phone after you put your password in, you have to do something on a personal device or a phone or a token to further validate and verify that it is you. We currently have this in place for our system administrators here in the district. We're going to be rolling it out to all staff throughout the course of the year in steps. We're gonna we're most likely going to start with our Google accounts and then extend that to our Windows machines and other large scale platforms. So we are working on the technical logistics of that. There may be some bargaining unit conversations that have to happen, just making sure that all staff members are properly equipped to get onto their devices with the tools that they need. So more to come on that, but just as a heads up, this is not a new thing. Most of us have it in our lives in one way or another. And actually our cybersecurity support vendors and our insurance companies are all pushing us in this direction. So this is a regional move. We're towards the front end of it, but it's certainly happening throughout the county. We had our first district-wide network infrastructure assessment completed. So we brought in some of our bigger scale vendors. We brought in reps from Cisco and Meraki and the vendors that support that equipment. So that's all of our Wi-Fi network gear. The purpose of this is technological and financial. So what they're doing is, if you remember when we did our tech plan that we sent to the state, they wanted very, very rough numbers as to what it would take to replace all the things when they come. And it's one thing to give the state a general concept. It's another thing for us to really build our financial plan for that replacement cycle. So our vendor partners are coming in and walking through every piece of equipment in the district and giving us a projected end of support, end of life, and helping us figure out when things need to be replaced and what the cost is projected to be in today's dollars and then how. So we're working on that piece with the assessment side. I'm working, I've been in touch with our legal counsel and some of our financial planning partners to understand what mechanisms are available to us from a budget perspective where, are we able to put away a little bit of money every year instead of replacing things we don't necessarily have to replace just to get ahead of not having to do them all in one shot. So we're looking at opportunities to be a little bit more responsible, and maximizing the lifespan of our year and being a little bit more intentional and responsible with our financial planning for those large scale replacements, because with the tax cap, they allow us very little movement year to year, but these things don't move that way. These are like peaks of value, right? It's every 7 to 10 years, you have to spend this big chunk of money on this part of the network, and then this part of the network, and not all times the same. So there's, we're exploring all kinds of different types of structures for like reserve accounts, for example, where we can say, all right, we're going to put a little bit of money away every year for the next 5 or 6 years, knowing that on year 7, we have to make this significant network purchase. So kind of a new thing, something we haven't done here before, but some other districts have made inroads in this direction, and we're going to copy some of the better ideas we can find and hopefully have a good plan as we go into our budget cycle for these long range tech planning replacement.
Can that stuff be covered under the repair reserve? It's-
Not necessarily, it's not a catastrophic failure that would preclude school, if the network died
You
and.
could always throw like the routers in buckets.
I mean, yeah. We had slight,
I would have thought though, you know, the fact that the stuff, either it's out of date or it can't, you know, if we're upgrading because we're at the end of life. I mean, it's kind of a repair, I guess. I don't know.
it's one of those, you probably should have seen it coming.
Yeah,
But like I said, I've seen some other districts have specific reserves set up, and then there's things that can and can't be included. But if we can mitigate us, literally a $200,000 to $400,000 variance in the budget, that only pops up 5 to 6 years, cycles. That's kind of the goal. So I have talked to legal, we've gone back and forth a little bit. We're gonna look more into it. And hopefully, once we have a plan, I'll bring it to the board and I'll say, as part of our budget cycle this year, we're gonna add in this piece and it's gonna help us with cuts. And I'll have real numbers to share with you at that time. Just an update on our repair reserve authorization. So the one variable, which was our lowest cost item, which could have been a big cost item, was the high school boiler circulator pump that was repaired. It was completed, John, what was that, a couple weeks ago? Yeah, that was 2 weeks ago. Yeah. So John can get more into the detail of the work that's being done. The parts for the Elm Drive repairs, more significant repairs have been ordered. So that work is pending. We have gotten some quotes on repairing the chillers at the high school. They're a lot. We're looking at roughly $40,000 per chiller. So if you recall, we spent $43,134 in the authorization for the initial repair reserve. I think, and I'm going to work with John to kind of drill this down a little bit. We don't have enough money in the reserve to do both chillers, but I'd like to maybe do one. So I'm going to comb through that spec. We just got the quotes today. I just put eyes on it for the first time. So I'm going to work with John. We're going to drill it down a little bit. Hopefully by the next board meeting, I'll be able to come with recommendations requested the board to further authorize funds to make those chiller repairs. Chart. John and I met with our CSEA team to firm up our snow removal plans for this year. So we've made some updates to how we're going to address snow throughout the campus. I think we made some pretty good inroads. The team seems to be pretty happy about it. We sent it to legal for review, and hopefully they come back with some concrete language to implement it. So we can just really simplify the process and taking into consideration the needs of our kids, the needs of our staff, and the safety of the teams responsible for removing the snow. So we look to have that brought to the board. I believe that's going to require board action. So we'll be bringing that once it's firmed up by then. The central office, we've continued our facelifts. I don't know if John, you're going to talk about some of that work, but John can give you the details of it. But I really just want to say once again, our in-house maintenance and custodial teams continue to do a lot of our facelift and renovation work in-house. We really cut back on asking BOCES for assistance, bringing in third-party vendors. Every single project we do, John is taking time to train our staff into new trades, new skills, new processes. So I'm just pretty pumped up. If you walk in, you can see the greeter's office has been refreshed. Made entrance to the district office here, and then our staff did all that work with their own hands, and just incredibly proud of our team and the work that they do. And I wanted to highlight that here. Moving into capital project planning. Again, we're hoping or pushing towards a May vote for a capital authorization. As part of that process, we brought in our architects and engineers to assist us in our construction manager search. So that RFP was put out. It is due November 18th, next Friday. We'll have the proposals all in. We did a walkthrough with prospective bidders, and we had 4 firms to go up. Between myself, Mr. Crowley, and some of our colleagues, we know of all of these folks. These are known entities. These are pretty significant companies that would that have done good work in the region. So we're pretty excited that we're getting a decent amount of feedback on our RFP. I was planning on following a similar process with the construction, with the architectural and engineering firm, but I wanted to ask the board if there was any desire to change that process, I mean, just as a refresher, we use the facilities subcommittee of the board for the initial interviews. We brought the 2 finalists forward to the Board of Education for a final interview. If the board is amenable to that, we'll do that again with the construction management firm. This is, for those that may not be familiar with the process, they're a complementary piece to the puzzle. So the architects and engineers who design the project, the construction manager is really the clerk of the works that sees the project through day in, day out. They're validating pay applications, they're overseeing construction, they're providing an interface between us, the collective owners of the project, and the architects and engineers who designed it. So they are a critical part of the puzzle. The board, I don't know if you could discuss that or want to discuss that, or if you have any questions about that. But barring any reservations, that would be planned going forward. I would share the proposals received with the committee. We would screen them, we could screen them virtually and narrow it down, do a first interview, and then do a second interview in public session if that's what you want us.
I mean, that's what the committee is there for. Does anybody have an issue with continuing on that process? At least let the committee kind of take the first shot at it and then bring it to us. Because the other thing that we need to do is we need to start looking at what if we went for 5 million? What if we went for 25 million? What if we, and what is that impact? So that we can start to narrow this down to what is it we believe we can afford.
My favorite parts
you
of
know.
these meetings are when you tee up my next statement.
So we really need to get that, the board as a whole, I think, needs to be able to work our way through, listen to what the impact of each aspect. Let's call it each clip level, and then make a decision on what we're gonna.
Absolutely. So my next point was, in addition to that RFP, we also have the financial advisor RFP out. It's also due next Friday.
Okay,
The board has a particular committee that they would like to do the first screening, same process. If we do follow the same process, is there a particular subcommittee of the board that you would like to lead the first round of interviews for the financial planner?
Does that really make sense?
Or my seems to be financial committee of the board.
Yeah. I mean, that's really just looking at the actual RFP for the financial planner, not addressing numbers.
Well, no, so let me kind of add a little bit to that. So we're looking for a municipal advisor to give us the general financial planning, which assists with the capital planning because there's a debt service component to that. Ken Crowley and I are meeting with our bond counsel tomorrow afternoon in preparation of all of these discussions. So bond counsel is going to come in. We're going to talk about where we are with our debt. Because I think a big part of capital planning is managing your debt in the loan. And so most capital projects, and I won't say all of it, most of them are financed over an 18-year period. Some 15, some 20, some 30. Like the high school new construction is a 30-year debt. But typically, the things that we're looking at doing are financed for roughly 18 years. They take 2 to 3 years to complete. So we're really looking at what does our debt look like over the next 20 to 24 years. Bond counsel is managing the bonds that we put out to borrow that. The financial planners look at how that debt fits into our debt service and our annual budget to help us stay within the tax cap. And so I think, Perry, as you were saying about the tiered expenses, what we want to do during the capital plan or the project planning portion of this process is to say, we can do X dollars worth of work with a $0 impact to the taxpayer. And if we're willing to ask the taxpayers to give us an extra $10 a month, we can add 5 million. Or, or we can leverage all of our reserves and mitigate the taxpayer impact in the first phase and then have to borrow more later because we have debt coming off. So like, this is where we look at these 20-year timelines and how big the debt pieces are, when they drop off, right? When we pay off the high school, a big chunk of debt drop. Good financial planning means you want to keep your debt service pretty level. So as old debt drops off, we can fit new debt in without dropping our tax levy, because then we can't raise it without piercing the cap. Potentially, we don't want to have our taxpayers fluctuate. We want people to just be comfortable with the building.
I mean, my biggest issue with the subcommittee is not that I don't trust the subcommittee. There's probably no bigger decision the board's gonna make in the next 3 years. I would want to have some in-depth participation by board members, if not, have work this with the board, either at a workshop or a special meeting, I mean, or, you know,
So the proposals are due next Friday. I can share them with the full board. If the full board wants to handle this as a group, we can do it in public session, or in a special meeting. It's up to you.
I mean, I'm trying to think which subcommittee would even fit. I mean, we've got the audit committee, which is sort of the, you know, financial watchdog. The facilities committee is gonna be more about the what needs to be done than how you gonna pay for it.
That was my question. Ellen. I mean, you would think that you'd kind of, yes, how much we want to spend is important. But how much do we need to spend? You think would have to come before that, right? I mean, if we look through and say, we absolutely have to do this. So our lowest is 8 million, our highest is whatever the highest would be. So you kind of have to have that idea before you go into.
We do, thankfully, because we have a healthy capital reserve, I can say that the floor is 9 million. And we have 8.8 million in cap reserve money. So if we didn't have a financial plan, worst case scenario, we could address the most egregious issues to the tune of about $9 million.
Okay.
And get something done. So I feel like if we didn't have any reserves, I'd be a lot more uncomfortable.
But we have to, I mean, somehow we have to balance it. Right? I mean, there's, I'm assuming there's gonna be some things that are gonna make us very uncomfortable. You know, wow, where are we gonna, we have to do that, but where are we getting the money? So being able to balance those two things and assess it and say, you know, if we did this level of, this is like, these are, everything falls down the hill if we don't do these, that's gonna take us to here.
And honestly, this is why I really appreciate that the board is letting us do these searches now, because we want all these people in on this conversation. We want the architects, we want the construction managers and the financial planners to all dial into this exact conversation.
Why don't we'll table the committee structure for a little bit. I mean, we've got a little bit of time.
We do, and like I said, I'm moving forward with the bond council conversation so we can better understand our debt, and that's the kind of stuff we're gonna hand off to the financial planner. We do have a financial planner right now, so it's not like we don't have this service available. What we're looking to see is if it's the best service for our needs going forward. So I will work with the facilities committee to get this construction manager process up and running as soon as I can read through the proposals and get them out to you. We'll get the date scheduled. We'll start sending emails, having tentative times to meet.
And maybe what we have to do is build a special purpose subcommittee, you know, not gonna be there forever, but that's gonna really work this day to day.
But I can put it on my list for our next board meeting, we'll discuss it. And then in addition to that, just, you know, also as part of our capital planning, you know, I know that Carolyn touched on the traffic concern that Alden and Elm, so we did have the architects come down and do a full campus-wide traffic assessment. And they did give us draft recommendations, drawings, plans for our consideration as part of our capital work that would augment the traffic patterns at all 4 buildings. So that they did a full campus study. And if we, you know, best case scenario, how do we change how parent pickup and drop off, bus pickup and drop off, how does it look? And so, I know we spoke about Elm Drive, I think, at my last update, adding, you know, the vestibule and kind of updating all that. So they're looking at it as a holistic image. Like, we're not just going to make it a driveway. We're going to move the main office so that it's right in front of the drop-off point and make a secure vestibule. And so all the things tie together. And those recommendations have been sent to us. We can share them. Again, it's a little early in the process to share them now, because we want to look at the entirety of the plan. But as we move through, we're already building up things to share. We can start to look at and see if there's value in investing. I think we touched on that. Yeah, and just in general, I think Ken's been great. We're meeting, you know, a couple times, 3-4 times a week to discuss things. Today's discussion was about principal account clerk transition and the transportation bid. So we had a meeting today with our transportation RFP consultant and my counterpart in Dover. They are leading the conversation. They were here the last time we did it. So the bid document or the RFP document is just about ready to issue. They're working on some minor adjustments that we noted today. We're verifying some things with our insurance carriers about requirements within the bid docs, and we're hoping to have them put out by the end of the week or by next week at the latest, so that we can have this bid opening before the holidays. So they're targeted. We're trying to be one of the first districts or group of districts going out to bid this school year. And our goal is to get the RFP issued, have the pre-bid meetings and the bid opening all before the Christmas recess. So that's where we are with that process. More information as it becomes available. I think that's.
Any other questions for Elliot? Okay, the fun part, this is where we torture John.
Overall, since 2010, we increased the preventive maintenance, 9 grade levels were behind the wall, so water needed treatment and spray that clone. We spoke about maintenance, very work, and the water pump has been rebuilt and installed. They both boilers are fully operational at the high school. On drive, we're waiting on the condensate tank and the leak compressor. I'm hopeful that we can get it at the end of November or early December. Yeah, but the water systems have all been winterized. All window air conditioners have been sealed for the season. Boiler train has commenced with all facilities and new facilities on the side. We stopped saving on fuel and shut the boiler down at 2:30. It's gonna be a really cold night. Starting the night, I'll have the boiler on 11 o'clock. It seems like 8 hours. Probably about 120 gallons per building, so you're talking about 500 gallons a day, about 25 hours a day. That would save these guys on that. So I want to thank the custodians for making students willing to join in on learning how to work the boards. All interactive fish and display boards that were purchased this year have now been installed by the facility team and the tech department. All clinic is on the way, weeds. A lot of leaves around the place, looks a little messy, but I figured let the leaves come down and knock out all on shot. So it's going every single day. Guys doing it, the guys are doing something else. Another thing done. Elm Drive, we played the stage more furniture that they had up there. For future performances, the principals like to do like plays and stuff like that, so we put the risers back over there and. She wants, that's what she got. Okay, we paint the traffic lines and curbs now. And we research options for illuminating the national signs in front of the school. You need to do it on electrical ground, maintenance, or we can get solar lights. So research that. The high school, we saw through the windows in the guidance office, the building shifted over time, and the guidance council was trying to get the windows open, we couldn't get the windows open, they were locked for years. So I looked into having the windows replaced, and that estimate's like $6,800 to $8,000, but those kind of crazy two windows. So I researched it and I purchased the windows for $400, and it's still you can put it in the pump house. We like it. And the guidance council and the secretary was so happy that the air finally out and it looked like it. And fired the general office. With preparations being made for the athletic field for the season. Elliot spoke about that with the air conditioning system. We replaced the broken sink and installed new automatic faucets. That job will be done by Bolges. They did all the ones on the COVID pandemic. We go on top now. Middle school, all the blackboards, whiteboard conversions are complete. Came to boys' restroom on the second floor in room 10. 10 is from the readers' offices outside of it, so we're getting preparations for the drop ceiling and LED lighting in there. Readers' office. The maintenance team put the drop ceiling in ourselves, and we put LED lighting in there also. So that's part of the remodeling the administration offices. And then at Oregon, we installed an exhaust fan and duct pipe in the secure vestibule area, and we built that wall there. They didn't take into consideration the heat, on one side, the heat that side, it's hot as hell. To my French, and then when you go in the entrance, it's freezing. So we put an exhaust fan in there to bring the heat over to the entrance. And Mr. Lincoln would like. Put around the benches, the rocks, and probably use those points, but I don't think that.
So one of the things we talked about, John, was taking it'll be for like PM schedule, but it'll be for everything else, like we have to submit this paperwork to the state every year, so we're looking for some sort of package that we can do that with. Want to make sure it's the same, whatever it is, that you schedule preventative maintenance and we know who did it and when it's signed off. So I just want to make sure you're engaged in that. This is just like a conversation from last Thursday or something like that, but we need to make sure that you're taking advantage of it too. Okay, questions for John?
Just one quick question, the sign for Elm Drive, eliminating it is, A, do we need it to be lit up? Visitors at night, but if we do light it up, we should be very careful, is that residential neighborhood, how we light it?
Oh,
There's timers.
Yeah,
shut
no,
down,
right.
It shuts up on it down.
Are the others
Right.
lit up or not, right?
So,
Isn't that-
We had the traffic lights over here, and the parking lot lights, so
The one
it's a
down.
little more bright
Oh.
over here in the middle school.
I don't know, did you?
Is it missing?
We have the.
right, has there been a problem? I mean,
It was requested by the former principal. And he wanted to lit up.
okay,
You know, it's just an idea, no, and urges for anything yet. Just looking into it. That's a good point, maybe we should.
right.
I mean, you go by other districts and they've got some really bizarre school signs out front, videos running on them, and I don't know why you need all that stuff, but stuff.
Because you can sit inside and
Yeah.
update it.
You want to come outside and change the letters with us? okay?
Yeah.
So what do you think?
Nothing I change inside. it works great.
Yeah, I was thinking like a 8-foot, 6-foot sign.
Marquee, digital.
Yeah.
That's what we were thinking too. I'm glad you mentioned it.
Mr. Hartswick said.
Thank
And just make sure when you send those lists of what I said, make sure you put your name. All right, any questions for John? Any more questions? Amy?
Great, thank you. So I continue to keep this on my agenda and I love coming back to you once a month to share about the update on the community-based services without walls program. And it connects with my community relations because I have permission to share their photos. So I've been putting them on social media, working in the kitchen. So again, our Monday group is our females that come in and they have been helping with preparing the fruit cups. They've been making the salad. The Wednesday group is the boys. They do some of the heavy lifting because they like lifting heavy things. They love pizza day because Wednesday is pizza day at the middle school. So they get their rubber gloves on, they're serving pizza, they're preparing the salad ahead of time. They were making grilled cheese in the back. They have a fabulous sense of humor. One of the students was making a grilled cheese and he calls me Amy. It's adorable. And he goes, Amy, look at this. And he holds it up. I'm not gonna put it in my mouth. I was just kidding. But he had his rubber gloves on. I have a good sense of humor about what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. They get the job done. They were working hard. I've seen the food service staff is doing an amazing job supporting them and giving them freedom and their job coach to help them learn about that role. So each week they're learning a little bit more and I see them doing more on their own. So it's a work in progress, but we're so fortunate that Millbrook is allowing it to develop. So I just wanted to highlight it again, because it's great. So you'll see me continue to tweet it out.
And the students are treating it cool,
Yeah.
you know, they're cool about it.
Yeah, no one would
Yeah.
have any issues whatsoever. We come
Nice.
down, we put on, they say hi to us when we come in, the kids are, they are looking quite. That's wonderful,
Very
great
cool.
opportunity. You've also heard me talk about the teacher internship program with the colleges. I have submitted a flyer because each of the colleges wanted to be able to have something on paper to send to their students. So I've done that. They asked for a QR code. It has that. It's also posted on OLOS. It's on our website. So if I see, recently I was in a restaurant and there was a waitress who is in a program at New Paltz. I told her, go on our website. You could be one of our interns. Just wonder if your college is supporting you. We can do that. I don't. So, so we are doing whatever we can. I know Ms. Holzberg will also talk about what we're doing for getting substitutes in our building. But again, we're really just trying to harness that future generation of teachers and being able to create that within our home district. I was thrilled in one of my other roles in the town of Unionville. I am serving as the president of the library board, because there's an annual library in Unionville. So I have the ear of Justice Paul Pinko, and I said, hey, so while I have you, some of our students live in Unionville too. Would you ever be interested in opening your courtroom to have our students sit in here? I explained what I had done previously in Wappingers. He was like, oh my God, absolutely. It's been forever since I've had a student in the courtroom. And we're fortunate he holds court as 3 Wednesdays of the month, first, second, and third. So he said, absolutely, send them my way. So I shared that information with both Mr. Syke and the social studies teachers. I'm trying to give it a week or two just to see if they get any response, and then I'm just going to start asking the students directly. So we're hoping to get some. I've also followed up. I know the town of Washington Town Justices, when I did make contact with the clerk, they requested a formal letter in writing from me, so those have been mailed out to them and the other towns, just to see if any of the other town justices were interested. So I was really thrilled that the town of Unionville was so open to that. And then I've just been at different events, whether it was with Ed Elements or CBS Wow, or just looking around classrooms, taking pictures, been trying to post more, I get the pictures, but then I don't have good cell service, so then I have to turn off my Wi-Fi, go to the LTE, so it's a little bit of a process. I've been trying to do that at least once a week, do a photo dump so that we can get some more postings out there on our social media. Instructionally, I am thrilled that I have had, I meet with the principals all the time, but formally, individually met with each of the principals to go through their goals. So they're developing SMART goals for this year, goals that I can help support them with. So we had our first round of those meetings. Each of the principals is making some fine tuning to those goals, just to make sure it is measurable, because otherwise it's not going to be worth that effort that they're going to put into it. So we want to make sure that we can see, did that recipe work the way that we wanted it to? And along with that, I've been doing in tandem, learning from my colleague, that we can book the time. So I'm doing my learning walks with them as well. So where Caroline talked about the observation walks, we're spending time, and we just have the same rubric that we're using to look at the tasks that's happening in the classroom at the time, so that we are gathering across the district K-12 data on the types of tasks our students are doing. And then as an admin team, once we have enough of those learning walks in, we can start seeing if there are any trends, if there's an area in one building that's not in another building, just so that we can have conversations. So in the absence of having that data, we're going to be able to do that. So I'm excited as we start doing more of those learning walks, what we're going to find. And I'm thrilled with, and couldn't be any prouder to work with the principals that I work with, that they are doing this amongst themselves as well. So they're not just meeting myself, Elliot, Caroline, or even Samantha to walk with them. They are pairing up with themselves and going into each other's building and doing that. So we are very fortunate to have them as building leaders. I know Caroline already mentioned strategic planning, but just a little bit deeper into what we were doing with the how might we statements that we did with Ed Elements. We took each of those because Ed Elements also wants to collate that information for us, but we wanted to have more voice, right? Because you can only have so many people in the strategic planning team itself, although we were recruiting additional teachers to be part of that from the other 3 buildings at those faculty meetings. But what we did is we had the staff rotate. We put each of the how might we's for the 4 pillars. After we explained, our mission, our vision, we had the visual up there with the 4 pillars as well. We asked them to go around and add what would they add to that how might we statement. So they went around and then they went around the second time just to put check marks to anything that they agreed with after they got to see it, so that they had the additional opportunity to read what others had written. So we did that at both the elementary and the secondary level. So I've taken pictures of that. We're sharing that with Ed Elements just to see that next level of work that we have ahead of us. So we had the several days, several weeks in a row with Tracy Tyler, our staff developer. We have had a little bit of a breather, and then she's going to be coming back in December to work with pre-K, grade 2, and grade 5. She's given them work to do, like homework to do, and particularly on reading, on writing conferences with the students, and given them support materials to be using and trying, so that when she comes back, they're getting asking questions and pick her brain for feedback on other things that they can try, or how did it work information. So she's got many more days with us, but like I said, we were focusing on those 3 grades right now. And I know at my last presentation, we talked about what we were doing for superintendent conference day, but we actually have not had it yet. But we did successfully have the branching minds training. We have part 2 scheduled for our next superintendent conference day in February. We're at that point right now with branching minds that we are going to we are working with the RIC to try to see how we get the 2 data sources to mesh together. So branching minds is really the purpose is to collect data on attendance, discipline, and academics, so that we can see that in one place, and looking at how that may or may not be impacting student social emotional growth and learning. And so we're just trying to get the 2 systems to talk right now, and a little bit of a pushback on time from the RIC, but we are still moving ahead on that in the best that we can system that we have. As far as Eureka training, as Caroline mentioned earlier, we've been looking at the resources that the teachers currently have, and once the grants are finalized, the additional manipulatives that we're going to be purchasing for the teachers, and that's where those materials will put into the grant. But their second half of that training is also scheduled for February, but they've had access, and each level had time to review the digital resources that are available for our students, including formative assessments.
Question?
I do have one.
Yes.
First, I want to applaud you on all of this. So many wonderful things going on. For the goals meeting with building principals, unbeknownst to you, and I don't remember if the rest of the board remembers, some point during last academic year, we, the board, had mentioned that we would like to see in the principal reports, goals of each principal. And I don't think we really followed, it was mentioned at 1 or 2 meetings, but I don't think we really ever, set up any type of formal directive. So the fact that you've identified that, and, it's in parallel, something that we would like to see. Will the principals, is it your intention to have them start also getting that information to us?
The intent really is, it wasn't for me per se, as it was, how can I be a coach
Right.
and a support to the principal? So my role in the first round has really been about what is an area that you want to see improve or changed. And to really focus them back on what's important to you, because at the end of the day, at the end of the year, when you come back to look at this, I want you to feel like the time that you put into this was worthwhile, not that you did it for me. So that helped them to go back and say, so, where's the data that I'm gonna use to show myself, not me, but show themselves that this is something I want to continue for next year. It's, ultimately the purpose of the SMART goal is to show that, you want it to work, of course, but you want to have the data to show what could I do differently if it didn't work. So without that data marker, that's what we're
Right.
So my hope is that we've set it up with a 30, 60, 90 so that we're checking in. So that we wouldn't just wait till June to get those results. So I can certainly talk to that. We're working on one global K-12 goal on MTSS. So we've had a meeting as all 5 of us together, and actually Alex and Sam joined me on that as well, just to look at our systems. And it's a much deeper conversation, and we weren't quite ready to write a goal because I'm still learning about where we are and actually having conversations where each other is with our MTSS. So I certainly think it's a possibility for us to be able to share what it is. It just depends on what our goal is. I'm not comfortable saying yes, no.
Oh,
yet
sure,
until
sure.
get
And
our final-
and also, I want to make sure the rest of the board is remembering that correctly.
Part of the strategic planning thing is to set goals at the district level,
Mhm.
which then feed down to the, because you don't want the principal to have a goal of, everybody wears wooden clogs to school for some reason. I don't even know, ridiculous, but you don't want them to have a goal that completely misses what the district's goals are. And so finalizing that in the next 3 months, 4 months, something like that, is important for us to make sure that the principals have goals and that align with that. But
But again, the intent of this was really for them to identify what an area that they want
Yes,
to improve, not so much for the board as much as
No.
for them.
And I might have not have been so clear either. And I think our discussion last year was exactly
Yeah.
that. We would really would be great for us to see at each building what each principal identifies as a goal, whether it's something to improve or just a challenge, it could even be a challenge they've been seeing, but using some type of measurable data to track it.
So I'm sorry, were you done?
No, I don't. Yep.
I'm sorry. Okay, so my understanding is the answer to that, once there's more time with what you are doing with each of the principals, then we'd be able to have an answer, something to look at. Is that kind of the answer?
I have to push back on this a little
Okay.
bit.
Uh-huh.
I do. I think from the perspective, like Perry's saying, when there's district identified goals and we are creating maybe accountability or targets within the buildings that we're working towards, I absolutely see that as a public discussion. I think when principals are identifying their own areas of growth or targets within their building, I think a public discussion on that is maybe not really helpful to that process. If they're looking to grow as individuals in their craft and their practice and they're identifying goals for their building, I see them as very different.
Well, and ultimately, just so that you have some background within the conversations we're having, I want, just like I would a teacher, I want them to take a risk and try something that could get a little messy. And as I said, as much as you want a goal to be successful, I want the thought process that we go through to be trackable, so we know to do course correction if necessary, so we don't continue to, use that analogy of give the same medicine every year, but not, so if attendance, let's use attendance. So if attendance was your goal, to improve attendance, and say, so we're gonna have our counselors do check-in, check-outs, we're going to do quarterly reports to check on who are high frequent absenteeism. So those are things that you would do normally, in a high functioning school district. Those are things that are happening. So if those things are naturally happening, writing it down as a goal isn't necessarily gonna make the change that you may be looking for. So, like, to the point that Caroline's making, I think, I would rather have them try something different with me and see if that is gonna be making a difference. Because the same thing has, right? So I want to give them the space to try to grow and push themselves and explore other opportunities than the ones that I would have tried as a principal.
Yeah, I think that's more of a personal improvement.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that should be kind of kept that
Yeah.
way. With our strategic planning, I do think that we're gonna set the kind of and then when the principals come in to give their updates, I mean, they will, and we can always ask them to, just kind of give us a status for where you're at with goals and everything else. And I think that could give us more information that you're looking for, but
And
as far as
again,
the personal improvement.
I wasn't getting at personal, I was remembering a conversation
No, I
that we had as a board, not independently in my mind, so. And attendance was something that has been brought up, even going back to remote instruction, and that it was identified as a problem at the high school, and so I don't. That just never really went anywhere. So, that's just an example.
Mhm.
So I'm not expecting a principal to come in speaking about their own personal growth. That's for sure. But more toward your point, what are some of the challenges? You're not you as a principal but the high school, the culture of the high school. Even if they don't, here's some improvements. Or this is just something we're facing right now within the culture of our high school. How can we as a board support that if we don't know about it?
Yeah,
So,
so I think it sounds different to me, like maybe we need to clearly define what we would like to hear from the administrators when they come in.
mhm,
In terms of that type of attendance intervention, what, how are we measuring the climate of the building, like those kinds of things. If we're clear with them what we want to hear about, I think that's helpful, right? If there's focus areas that the board is interested in hearing about. But I think the spirit of this particular process, and it's one that's happened in years past as well, identifying goals and then working through a 30-60-90 plan. It's really supposed to be part of sort of the self-evaluative process, and then how we, as their supervisors, monitor their growth and their movement towards goals in their building. So I think they are related. I think they're kind of different, and I think if we can, and maybe it's an opportunity to get more feedback as to what the board wants to hear about when the principals are here.
I had another question. It was going back to the NISBA conference and representative from BOCES who was working on civic engagement project. I think the students that presented were from John Jay, and I want to say also Dover. It was so incredible. It ended with a standing ovation for these students and a room full of people. So I don't know if it's too early, but are we in progress for anything in working along lines with that? Do you think there's any possibility maybe our Millbrook students can be attending such a presentation or giving such a presentation at next year's NISBA conference?
I think, I don't have a crystal ball, but what I can say is, based on, the work that I had done in Washington, with the field of civic readiness. I have spoken to our social studies teachers, and during trainings and department meetings that I have worked with them, that has naturally come up to ask me, which is a great compliment to our social studies teachers, what we could do to bring that to Millbrook. And so there is more than enough information out there, almost too much information, so it can be overwhelming. But what one of my goals is to unpack that with them. So this is our year of discovery and learning, and in preparation so that over the summer we submit a request if we find that it's a direction we want to go. So some of the things that are different than in a larger district like Wappingers, or the number of electives students have possible and available to them, just because we are so small. students don't have a lot of room for electives anyway, but we want to look at, so one of the things that I have worked on in Wappingers is embedding the activities that would lend itself to the skill of civic readiness, earning those points within their mandated courses. So that requires them to do some review of what they currently have and to do some additional writing where one of the options with the skill of civic readiness is to use your community service, you can use your electives for an additional points. The tracking is terrible right now through the state, so tracking the number of points that students earn has to be visible to parents and to students. Right now, you know, I know Ellie and I had a previous conversation about school to parent portal. Students having their own ID, that hasn't happened just because of the email, you know, privacy requirements, but that's something that the skill civic readiness requires the students to be able to see how many points that they've earned, and we don't necessarily do this through school. We don't have a system for that, but it's definitely on our radar to explore. And that's part of the reason that even outside of getting the skills of readiness, I'm working with the town justices just to open up and get them excited about participating in their local government and hearing more about, you know, their legal system around the towns that they're in, so that hopefully we can at least get them excited so that they would want to participate more. But either way, it's for me, it's about access. I want everybody to have access, not just those who have room in their schedule.
Thank you so much.
Anybody else? Okay, thanks, Amy. One thing I should have mentioned in my report, which I completely forgot, was I was pretty pumped by the presentation from Oak and George on what's going on in the Thorn Building. I mean, I think that is such an amazing opportunity for us, especially since they've got ideas, but they're looking for ideas. So Cheryl's reaching out to Oak and George to get a you know, a small group that can walk through there, look at, you know, not just look at what's there, but look at what they're planning to put there. You know, things like that recordings, the producing studio. I mean, kids that are into music, if they had the ability to go in there and actually produce, you know, a song that they could put online, that, I mean, there's just so many opportunities there, I think. And it's got such great backing to it. So just, I wanted you to know that we're gonna somehow, I gotta figure out how we get like all the board members and certain pieces of the administration to see what they have planned. Start thinking about, hey, you know, if you did this, we wouldn't have to put that in our capital project. We could make our programs better. I just think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity there. So we'll let you know more as we get back together with them. And hopefully we can get some tours set up so you can see, for those that haven't been in the Thorn Building, see what's really there. But okay, Samantha.
Good evening, everyone. I first want to thank you all for the opportunity in my transition from a full-time teacher to my current administrative role. It's been nothing but a welcoming journey, and I'm really looking forward to continuing my work in the Brooklyn School District. To start with SEL, social emotional learning, we have various days with multiple agencies to support multiple areas of SEL, such as presentations and lessons on internet and digital safety, bullying prevention, ending the silence on mental health, and financial education. And these days are throughout the school year, so it gives our students SEL throughout the year with an immerse and diverse different ways for them to involve themselves in activities that surround SEL. I'm going to move into instructional, but some of the instructional also correlates with social emotional learning. So similar to what Amy is doing with building principals, I am working with school counselors with their SMART goals. And some of those items include finalizing the school counseling comprehensive plan, exit surveys that we were discussing earlier, and ruler implementation. I will get into ruler shortly, but I'm going to move into discussing what we're doing with substitutes. So I'm also conducting interviews and working on hiring more substitute teachers. I've actually interviewed one so far. And I am recommending them to hire in addition to having another interview next week with another applicant. Going back to ruler. So ruler is, for those who don't know, an evidence-based social emotional learning approach that utilizes a K-12 social emotional learning curriculum. So far I've been meeting with each building ruler team to discuss year one rollout, which means supporting teachers with the curriculum. Fortunately, as a teacher last year, I was on the ruler team for the high school, which I am going to remain on the ruler team for the high school, but I'm just jumping on board with the other teams to support implementation for each building. And in addition to supporting them with year one rollout with the curriculum, I'm also meeting with the building teams and coaches from ruler to support teachers as well. I'm going to touch on Branch of Mind very briefly, because Amy already had done so, but I am working as a team with all of our building and district administrators to upload data into the program. So that has taken off with our first superintendent's conference day. As Amy had mentioned, we had our first meeting with Branch of Minds as a district. And I look forward to our next one during our second superintendent's conference day. I am also attending and registered to attend professional developments in which I will then turn key for over staff. So one that was very interesting to me that I recently attended on Friday was a regional safety symposium. And during that symposium, I learned a lot of great information where, I learned strategies on building safety awareness and procedures, as well as district safety awareness and procedures. And today I attended the Marist College School Counseling Symposium, and that was very informative as there were different breakout sessions where I learned how I can come back and bring to the district to turn to school counselors on different types of resources that our students can utilize, such as navigating through Naviance, SCORE, which are college and career readiness platforms. So that's something that I was looking into today, and I'm really excited to work with our school counselors to implement that with our students. And I have and will continue to attend GASA and Title IX professional development and training, which are a reactive piece for building administrators. But my job as a district administrator is proactive, where I will support building leaders with providing students with schools and social emotional learning support. And then lastly, strategic planning, I want to touch on that briefly as well. I am part of the connectedness team supporting SEL. And I am currently supporting the building principal with how I lead statements for strategic planning. And fortunately, I was able to lead yesterday's Elm and Alden faculty meetings with Tom Lipka. And I think that went really well, in addition to supporting the secondary teachers. And to end, I would like to welcome community members to join us on this exciting journey as a school district. That was a lot. So I welcome any questions you may have.
The presentation, Samantha. And I don't even know if this is a legitimate thing, but like presenting internet safety. I mean, I could see a lot of our constituents, taxpayers that could, and I'm sure this is like sort of twisted towards kids, but do they do presentation for like senior citizens and internet safety? And could we, I don't know if it's a legitimate thing for us to like offer a night class.
We
on
could,
something like
yeah, we could. So I'm not sure if Tom Roydall does that. He definitely does, school aged folks. I don't know if he does adults. I mean, I'm sure he probably has the information where he can tailor it to adults, right? We've done something like that for Family University in the past. This year's Family University is structured around social and emotional learning, but we do have community circle opportunities where we would be doing more of that webinar type information sort of push out. And we could certainly we can follow up with Tom or another resource on something like that.
So I can certainly follow up with Tom. However, I do have the answer for other agencies that are listed on here. They do provide resources for teachers and staff members. As of yet, that's the information I do have. I don't know about senior citizens and other community stakeholders. I can definitely look into that, but for example, the Child Abuse Prevention Center and the National Alliance on Mental Illness, they do provide sessions for teachers that are tailored to SEL in their areas.
I mean, maybe, and I'm just throwing this out as an idea, maybe, once a month or once every 2 months, we do a community education thing,
Like community circle.
there you go, or.
I think we'll call it community circle.
There you go.
Tell all your friends.
Tell all your friends, find it.
Sometimes the public libraries do that.
Yes.
Do that?
You know,
They
yeah,
do- they sure
not because
do.
they try, but I don't know what the turnout is. I don't know how they advertise it. It
I'm-
might just be a nice additional.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if, if people would be interested in it, but
I'm
if
sure.
we're doing, if we know. Where to access this kind of education. If people would be interested in,
Right.
coming and spending an hour or, 2
Yeah.
hours.
And even if we can't host it, just letting Tom know, the Millbrook Library does, they have a lot of funding for these types of learning opportunities, and they do provide a lot, but I don't know if they've ever hosted anything like this, but I'm sure if he, reached out to the Millbrook Library, they can put something together if we can't. I did have a question, which might be 2 questions, but am I putting you off?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
I mean-
Good.
You didn't think I was gonna say no, did you? No, go ahead. No, I
said
thought, some of these things, people might. It might be, even a night out to go listen to. When you get stuff in your reader says, please pick here and give me your social security number. Don't do it,
Mm-hmm.
Well,
that
it's
kind
not
of
only
stuff.
that, it's parents that want to be able to watch their kids too. So
Yep.
the kids are learning it, and a lot of them are ignoring it.
Yep,
So if parents have that education. They may be able
that's a
to-
good idea. Yeah, I mean, and if the library can do it, but, I just thought it was a nice way to tie. The school district and the tax money of the school that our constituents pay. To,
Sure.
anyway,
Yeah, maybe a little bit related to that, I was wondering could parents along your lines of, I know that the goal of the district is to be as proactive as possible and transparent and sort of building a stronger school to family connection. Could parents either attend with their child any of these presentations, or, there's logistics at play here, I realize, or at least get a summary of the presentation ahead of time, see the presentation ahead of time, anything similar to that. And you don't have to say yes or no at this moment. I would just food for thought. So that if their child, a 3rd grader, the youngest child, seeing an internet safety presentation, maybe something they felt uncomfortable or something, or they came home and started talking about something in that presentation to the parents, that is not the parents' first time that they're hearing that some type of this information was presented to their child. That was a really long question.
Yeah, so I've been, every time I invite one of our guest speakers to come speak to our students or provide a presentation, I do that. Make sure that they are appropriate for our students. Carolyn, you have that within,
Yeah, I think there are logistical issues with having parents coming in for sure.
Mhm.
We have been vetting these presentations to make sure that they are age appropriate, that there's nothing that we anticipate is going to be dinner table conversation that could be alarming. So we are doing that ahead of time. I think we can do communications to families around the topics. I will say that the logistical issues from parents coming into the school to be able to, you know, sit in on these presentations. I don't know if we can work that out. In some cases, we could be able to offer this in the evening for parents. In other cases, there could be a cost associated with that we would have to figure out where we're funding that from. And the flip side of it is due to the content of some of this, it's not available either in recording or webinar, because for insurance purposes. So there are some barriers to it, but we would want parents to be as informed as possible on, you know, sort of the topics of the conversation that we'd be having. Just so that they are prepared for any questions at the dinner table kind of thing. But we are doing as best we can to preview and vet all of these speakers.
Do you still do the internet safety discussion with the police officer and all?
Well, so this will be the replacement conversation. But it is a related, it's a related presentation.
I kind of woke up.
Yeah, so I think what it's called, that we were kind of caught off guard by. So we had received some feedback about that, but I think there's sort of two schools of thought with that. Like, you want to stick a kid's hand in boiling water to teach them that boiling water burns. You can explain to them the dangers of the internet without actually exposing them to something that might frighten them. So I think there was a bit of a scare tactic in that one presentation, that we don't need to repeat.
Right.
But that is why Samantha is being very diligent in previewing all of the materials, so that we can avoid any surprises.
All right, new business, first reading of 8,000 series. We're not taking any action on it tonight. Any questions, comments, updates?
I did have a few questions, but I don't know that I'm leave the subject. I know it's first reading. So would you, for the sake of time, would you want me to just email those?
Well, are
Or,
they changes you think that are needed? Or are they, you just wanted to know what was meant by it?
Okay, let me try to just pick like 3 of them.
I mean, what I don't want to have happen is we go to the second reading and then we have to change a
Well,
bunch of stuff and then we have to. go
I
back to
know,
the
well, I don't
first
want to
reading.
wait to just the second reading
Yeah.
and say, here are all my questions. But, okay, so I'll just start. So. Sorry. It was the prevention, on the opioid. Prevention of overdoses.
Page,
I think. 05. Go to page,
oh, I don't know. I think so. Sorry.
do we want to? Is there, I don't know if you want to do public comment. Okay. Yes, on page 5, it talks about. After the bullets, after the paragraph after the bullets, and it talks about in the event of an emergency, so applying the now naltrexone in the event of an emergency. Is that page 5?
I think I have a page number. It's 8121.1.
8121. Yeah, I'm not sure. Why I haven't- So you scroll down, the pages are along the side, actually.
If you're looking at it in the editor up in the.
Right.
comments, it tells you the page.
It does tell you the pages. So to me, it was page 5. Oh, no, not the highlight. I wasn't looking at the highlighted one. Anyway,
Oh.
are you looking at it? Okay, so in the event of emergency. So to me, the wording of that is like, well, in the event. Could that be rephrased better to, in the event of the child ingesting or the person ingesting the opioid, not in the event, so the way it's worded now is in the event of an
Where-
emergency, well,
I'm still, I'm sorry,
you're not
Chris,
finding,
I'm trying to find where you are.
okay,
PDF version, page 6, just after bullets. first paragraph.
it's the
Okay,
clean,
board
this is the
permits
clean
any school
version,
employee to volunteer.
so right after the
Yes.
bullets,
So I think we also need to be clear about the fact that we may not know if they have ingested opioids. And naloxone is an over-the-counter medication that is safe. So if we have a person who is down, and we don't know the cause,
Mhm.
and they have symptoms of a potential overdose, it could actually be safer to administer naloxone than
Yes.
not act.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know that we can be specific, because we may not know in an emergency.
Are you referencing softening the language from emergency, something softer? Events of any.
So,
A suspected,
Well, I mean, there would be, yeah, so.
right,
so there
rather
would
than
not be-
just the way it reads as a number, like
Sounds.
a completely different emergency. You know what I mean? Like, so. in
But
the
that
event
is the
of a-
emergency.
yeah, I mean, if,
I would say we do not do a lot of.
Okay.
Legal, it's not.
It's probably
and I
not.
think, I think Margot is still
Okay.
cleaning
still
some of
working
this
on
up
this now,
a little
yeah.
bit.
Okay, okay. I mean.
But
that's
definitely share
okay.
them, because we should. do the suggestion. Deal with. You know, some of the other ones, we definitely more committee with their advice, this specific one was predominantly legal requirements, very small tweaks.
Yeah,
But what's, I'm still, I don't understand are we worried that somebody's gonna go, I don't think that's an emergency, so I'm not gonna give him the. Okay, I know he's unconscious and laying on the floor but I'm not sure I can consider it an emergency, so I'm just not gonna give him anything? Is that kind of what we're worried about? I mean, any child that's found laying on the floor unconscious, I would consider an emergency.
yeah,
Uh,
I was thinking of just a different, an emergency. So in the event of a,
Possible emergency?
Do you want it to be specific to like an opioid overdose?
or not
like-
just opioid overdose,
But we don't want them to be, like, they find a kid unconscious
like. I was
and
just-
they're not sure, so they don't do anything and the child dies.
I think, are you saying like,
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 I'm
fell and hit
thinking
his
like-
head, and he's unconscious. you don't
Thank
want them
you, thank you.
administering-
That'll do it. That'll do it.
Right, but if
Just
you
medical
know this child fell and
There's
hit
all
his
sorts
head.
of other types.
I didn't know.
But no, I'm saying, if you know the child fell and hit his head, you're not gonna.
Right,
giving
I'm
it.
thinking of completely not even a medical, so just if putting the word medical.
So I think the pieces is this is the opioid policy. So this would be in an emergency, like someone is down and we are someone is suspecting. Like this is when it's appropriate to administer an
Yeah.
opioid inhibitor. So I
It's
feel like,
fine.
I don't.
Because it's under the heading of opioid.
Right,
Right,
it's
it's the
fine.
policy of when we're
Everything
able to
applies.
use that.
Okay, that's fine. The headings there already, that's fine. Just, right, we're not using this treatment for any other.
No, but it's more, I think the thing that we want our employees to be clear about, is if you're not sure,
Yeah,
give them that.
right,
Because it's
right,
not gonna hurt them.
right.
And
That's
if you don't know what the cause is,
It's safer
You
to
know,
act than.
it's safer to do it than not.
Customer discretion line. Training be done.
Right,
Right.
right, exactly, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's fine. My other question in general, I know this is to prevent an overdose. But it's reactive in the sense that something's already happening, right? Or possibly happening. And I don't know that this needs to go into policy, but it's more of just maybe a question of procedure or just thinking of training in general. Is there anything in place for training staff and even students on recognizing the rainbow fentanyl? It looks just like candy out on the grounds. So if they were to come across something, what do you
Yeah,
do with it? So to prevent, keep this in place, and I'm not saying a policy needs to be created on what I'm bringing up, but I'm just thinking.
Yeah, so, and we can talk more about that because
Yeah.
I know that, Frank at BOCES Regional Safety, just had a training actually today. And they have another one that is geared towards that informational,
Okay.
aspect of prevention, but then also identifying like signs of use and whatnot. So a little bit of both of that. Not to bring up a little bit of a sore subject, but we are also supposed to be in contract with Dutchess County Council for Addiction Prevention and Education, and they have not been able to secure a CASAC for our school yet. So that staffing shortage is a little bit of everywhere. So that would be another resource. And I will say that Samantha has been in constant communication with them. They don't have somebody to put here. So, yeah.
It's on your radar.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
We're on it. It is in the curriculum and health class and whatnot. And I know that this is something that our nurses are all over as well, getting themselves trained and whatnot. And training others, but yeah, it's on our radar.
So do we need to leave the first reading, leave it alone, and next time when Margot finishes, do the first reading again, or?
That's what we take.
I'm sorry, Dave?
I believe we made plans for the first and second.
Okay.
My
Alright.
other question had to do with if we go to the parking, page 7. Well, I'm looking at page 17, but, so 8240 R, traffic and parking on the property. Tell me when everyone's. Okay. So for the parking permits for the 12th graders, number 2. So the third and fourth bullet, not have committed a suspension level infraction of the code of conduct, and then the subsequent one. So to be eligible, is there any time frame there? So if they have committed a suspension level infraction of the code of conduct, or have left campus without permission or violate the provisions of its policy, ever, they can't have a permit, or is it within the last 3 months, 6 months, year?
So I don't know that we specified that, David, do you remember, we talked about it, but I think that was to maintain your parking permit, so it wasn't
Oh.
like you have it
Oh.
and you can just keep it forever.
I see.
Yeah, that
So-
was, it was because remember,
Got
they're
it.
coming in their senior year. This is a privilege only afforded to seniors. I think that at some point we've got to kind of wipe the slate clean because students do grow up, right? Sometimes they
Right.
make bad choices and sometimes they grow up. So I think we were thinking that if they committed any type of suspension level infraction, And we even kind of doubled down, like especially like leaving campus without permission or, you know, something like that, that would be cause to pull the permit.
So once they get the permit,
But,
they can't have.
right, but,
We can tweak that though.
okay,
We can change the last sentence.
Yeah,
So we-
absolutely.
Okay. okay. And then my only other question was the very last page, number 9. So when picking up students at dismissal from the elementary schools, do not block the driveways of individuals who reside on the side streets. I know the dismissal's been an issue, but wouldn't we want people never to block the driveways of individuals who reside on the side streets during school hours? This reads, just don't do it when you pick up your
Usually that's the only time
student.
it's an issue, though, right? I mean, it's.
Yeah, the biggest issue is
But-
when they're all lined up.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah. But if this
We
is.
gotta be careful about, you know, and don't exceed the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit in front of Elm Drive.
Yeah,
And
it's
don't
hard.
double park on
Yeah, yeah.
Elm Drive. I mean, we gotta be careful. We're not gonna write parking regulations for the village.
Well,
Honestly,
It
this
does
whole
say the
thing.
maximum speed limit shall not exceed 15 miles per hour.
It does say,
That's on-
On district property.
But this is, I mean,
This
this
is not-
honestly, this whole thing. With us having to go sort of police that
Yeah.
street. Is wrong. I mean, we should not have to have the principal and our SRO out there telling people not to block driveway.
Yeah.
So what I don't want to do is turn this into, you know, and on Alden, make sure that you're using your blinker to turn into Alden and make sure, you know, we don't want to get into writing parking. This is more about what we expect from our students and their parents when they're, you know, here to pick up. Putting it in there,
I would try to make it less specific,
yeah, I would almost, I don't know,
but just, or be mindful.
because really, this is
If there's no-
more of a policy for the students. Right, but the parking is driveway, not on campus specifically. So, I mean, we could just delete that out.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, if there's no consequence, if we kept it, maybe just, be mindful to not block. Or take.
yeah, I mean,
Right.
that's that
You-
question.
You didn't study the board policy before you were board member for it.
I mean, honestly,
You heard to write it down.
honestly, I think we should delete the thing about parking or blocking driveways on
Right.
the drive.
Just be
I think we
continued.
should go about it differently.
Yeah.
There-
Sorry,
I was saying, I think we have to go about, I know the parking is a huge issue from the driveways, we're trying to do our best. But I don't think we can throw this, there's no consequence, we don't
Right.
control those.
right,
But if we were to keep it there, I was gonna say we should add for school events, because people could just end up parking in that line and parking to block the driveway. And then you're gonna get to, well, what's after school events and,
honestly, I think this is a village thing.
yeah.
They need
Yeah.
to go put signs up that say don't block the driveways. They need to start handing out tickets if you block the driveway.
We have no authority to legislate,
Yeah.
on a village, or town.
So,
street.
I mean, if nobody has a problem, I would just delete that.
Yeah.
I agree.
That's it.
All right.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right. So you guys come back. I mean, it doesn't sound like we've got major changes, so we can just get it cleaned up. All right. I've asked for amending the calendar. We have a board meeting the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. And I was hoping we could push that out a week so that, if anybody's traveling, they're not stuck with that. I know I'll be calling in remote if we have a meeting on the 22nd, because I won't be in town. Does anybody have a problem? Well, actually, I guess, do I have a motion to, whatever it says, ratify the changes to the calendar? Do you have a second?
I'll second.
So. Just, what do you think?
I can't do it tonight.
Okay,
I just have a work thing.
I'm fine either way, but
So we just have back-to-back meetings, right?
right, if we change it to 20.
or we could pull it, I mean, it doesn't, the meeting doesn't have to be on Tuesday.
I mean, if you don't mind me not being there, I mean, I know one.
Yeah.
I just have a-
I mean,
thing.
I'm not sure I can handle.
We're talking like, 17th, right? Thursday, 17th, somewhere in between.
Yeah, I mean, would that be better? The,
Wait,
yeah,
oh,
yeah, but, I mean, there's the. Or we can leave it alone, just, if you can't be here, we just. I am,
yeah. I mean, it's
Howard,
for
what do you
everybody
think?
else.
I don't care. I mean, I have no.
Chris,
Yeah, either one is fine,
Yeah.
fine.
Either one is fine.
David? Okay, either way.
I'm good either way. I mean.
Okay,
I'm
so,
not going anywhere.
and I'm good either way, so, yeah, I'll just call him. Okay,
So it's staying on the 22nd,
what's that? Yeah,
so you're not amended.
so pull that.
I guess I am really.
Oh, yeah, we probably do have to vote. All in favor? All against? Okay.
To keep it the same. Okay.
So on the 22nd,
All because.
Now I have guilt. Guilt. Now you guys call in, just have the meeting now.
no, I mean, it's more important for me to take care of your specific.
Can you say that with a straight face?
Oh, my goodness.
Not to worry. Okay, the next is, do I have a motion to accept the donations with gratitude from the MEF?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Any questions, comments, concerns?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Yeah,
very
I
much.
don't really want to accept it, but like, even though some people do. All in favor? Aye. Any against? All right,
Can I
thank you,
can we
MEF.
just do the symposium, can I do a really quick thing on the symposium? I don't think you guys have something.
Oh,
It was really, really, really good, that regional symposium. And only because I was looking at the notes, did the administration get offered to, is this just for board members? Do you remember? I don't.
I think it was just for the board members.
I just thought it would be an excellent thing for like the administrators to see. This woman is called the Homework Lady. And please like jump in or she basically just talked about the kids in all grades. But she did some focusing on like the high school kids versus the smaller kids about how much, it's not so much rigor versus the load of like homework, like quality versus quantity. Talk about balancing basically a lot of kids feel really overwhelmed with the amount of homework, the amount of tests. And look, I'm a big fan of homework and tech, like I think the kids need it. But I think she had really good points about, like maybe trade schools are right for some kids, but a lot of these kids feel it's either they go to Harvard or homeless. Like you either get into Harvard or you're gonna be homeless, instant access to news. The world is small and close. These kids don't sleep. Again, more of the like high school kids. They talked about grading differently, testing differently. A lot of these kids are so stressed that they procrastinate, and that's how they get it done because they wait till the last minute. Like school practices to look at, allowing for autonomy and flexibility, parent and student education, scheduling of time. It was so interesting. I took a lot of notes. They talked about, when you go to your parent teacher conference, if your child is home and whatever subject it is, and there's crying every day, whether it's you or your kid, I've been there. Go to your parent teacher conference and say, you know what, Catherine and I are fighting every night over her social studies homework, her math homework. And we're really having, and it's really stressing me out, like how to really say to them. And maybe it is because Eureka Math is new. Maybe it is because social studies is not the parents, it's whatever it is. They just really talked about different alternatives for grading and homework and all this stuff. She's got a website. It's called homeworklady.com. I guess she didn't really want it to be that, but her name is Dr. Kathy Batarats. I don't know if I'm saying her name correctly. So, she's got a book. It's like rethinking grading, rethinking homework. And again, I don't want to say the kids should not get homework, should not get testing and stuff like that. It just talked about the kids today, we were talking about SEL and stuff like that, support programs. One thing that I really thought was great, and I think we were trying to do this, was one-stop support center. So it would be a place where the kids could go. It's a tech support, tutoring and counseling. So a student walks in and, Elliot walks in and I see him and I'm like, oh, Elliot's going in there for some counseling. No, he could say he's going in for tech support. Like the kids can go into this area, this room, whatever it is, and nobody will really know why they're going in there. And I don't really know how that's, how, or if we could implement it, but there were a lot of really good ideas on how, again, you probably have to buy a book, you probably have to do something, but just how the parents can really talk to the teachers at parent-teacher conferences and not just say, I feel like we've gotten away from how our parents did it when we were growing up. If you had a real heart-to-heart conversation, Perry is failing and we know it's his fault, blah, blah, blah. Now,
But see, there was no question.
Right. So I just didn't know if that, again, not that you guys have a lot of spare time, but it was so interesting.
Well, they sent the materials out too.
Yes,
So,
they said like
but
the
they're
synopsis.
really,
and-
yeah, it's not too much stuff.
Right.
Administration.
And there were the two.
Can we share the
Yeah, I don't know if
materials
you're
that we
allowed to.
received with
Yeah, yeah,
administration? Oh,
absolutely.
There was,
Yep.
the RISE superintendent praised two programs and they sent the links, youth mental health first aid.
Yep.
And University of Michigan's peer-to-peer program. So I thought it was fantastic. I would like to say thank you for offering it. It was really good.
Yeah, it came actually through BOCES because the Dutchess County School Board Association is the one that hired them to do it for some reason.
Did you have
Cool.
anything?
Yeah, we can forward the materials on to you guys. Or you can just go in my mail and take it. You can't do that yet?
Emails, no.
Oh, I thought you were hacking my email.
Were you on? Okay. Because I didn't know you were. They sent it. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, it was sponsored by the Dutchess County School Board Association. We paid dues to be a part of that, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know, Chris wanted to say, I just
Oh, you
wanted
go
to
ahead, add a couple.
mention, so for me, I felt like this was a utopia, right, of what they were presenting, and Mike, I had some concerns where if parts of what the presenter was saying couldn't be instilled, that one of the things was like, talk to your teacher, to your child at any grade level is overall homework, and teacher should be able to give a break to this child because the stresses, and I think my concern is now, well, is the teacher going to keep this child in for recess to get this work done? How is it going to play out? Not a concern about, I agree, not trade school is amazing. College is not for everyone. But I also think to say like, well, Harvard, if homeless, we should all have that, tied to the sky dream. And, not just say, well, and not, I guess, the tracking, like high and low tracking, and just say, well, you really don't, I'm not gonna go to Harvard, so you need to go to the trade school, and that might not be the case for you. So, for me, it was like a utopia. I know Jen, you brought all the highlights of it, but that was like my pessimistic side of it.
No, it was, because when you first look at it, you're like, okay, the kids do need homework, they do need it, but there were some points in there that I know affect, and we see like we see all these other effects from some of the stuff. I don't know what the answers
Well,
are.
that's why you can't just do, okay, we'll implement that,
Right, a blanket.
right? Because you need the counselors that are saying, Perry's interests sits in electricity, loves doing that stuff. He should really consider doing that versus, it's gotta be an individualized program. And a lot of these things, because every month we do this Dutchess County School Board Association. Nothing against anybody that's ever presented. But no one ever goes, oh, and then we had this problem and we had a thing, oh my God, it didn't work, we had to fix it. You should see, everybody's happy and they're all great. Now look look at our social media, I mean, you have to always take it with a grain of salt, even like at the NISBA conferences, you go to those things like, let me tell you how we did our superintendent search. And first of all, that 500 superintendents just showed up magically, and it was, you have to always take these things, but it definitely sounded like, especially the homework stuff had some really good points. Anyway,
I don't want to reiterate any of the fine points that Dina and Jennifer made. A few of the takeaways, for me, things that I think we can look at, in our district. Just a matter of how, and these are ideas for the administration. She talked a lot about, at the beginning, all the research on stressors, right, at the elementary school level and the secondary school level, and that most of our kids they're not sleeping, they're not eating adequately. And it made me think, well, what do we tell each other as adults, and what do we tell our employees? Self-care, take care of yourself. But children, especially at the elementary school age, they can't be responsible for their self-care. It's their parents. So how do we, or teachers, like how do we go about making sure, especially our little ones, our elementary age children, are eating appropriately, sleeping appropriately, and then middle and high schoolers even too. They might know about self-care, but how, we really need to be advocates for making sure they know what is appropriate self-care. I think so many high schoolers think it's fine to, I'll stay up till 2 and wake up at 6. And that's not impacting their health or their academics, but it is. So, if we're thinking about.
isn't that a parent's job to
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
my kid's up to 2 a.m. playing?
But do
video
they even know?
games?
You're right,
So,
sure.
We need to find a way to educate
Yeah.
parents on,
Yeah,
you need to make sure your kids are going to bed, eating right. I mean, and how many parents are gonna take that nicely from us?
right.
Somebody comes and tells me I'm not parenting correctly. Suddenly your back gets up.
I don't think
Um,
that necessarily, but
I
just.
think our counselors need to look for warning signs, which that's really their job, is to look, individualize the care and programming. But I don't know if we want to get into, calling parents and say, hey, I noticed Johnny was falling asleep in class today. You need to get on it, you're not doing your job. I don't know, you can kind of.
That's not what.
No, that's not what I'm
But
saying.
well, I'm being over the top, but some of this has to start with parents. We don't know what they're eating in the morning before they leave school. We don't know what they're eating when they go home. We don't know what time they're going to bed. We
Yeah.
might be able to see them falling asleep in class. But parenting, and if the homework is too much, there's probably other kids in the class that are,
Yeah,
don't
I
do it, or.
I guess my point is. And I'm not saying don't, I mean, of course, like, the bullying prevention, all of these, every training that you're mentioning that you're doing is wonderful. But maybe we also need to look at some of the basics that are contributing to either academic or social emotional problems. And yes, that's, I assume, everyone's trained in the district, teachers, counselors, to recognize signs of abuse and neglect. But what are some of the softer signs, right? How can we begin to intervene a little earlier? Or even just provide that support for families, education, they might not take, may or may not take it, but. So that was one area, and then she did, the presenter talked a lot about feedback versus grading. That they can be the same, right? When grading is feedback. But when are appropriate times to provide feedback, but not necessarily grade? And I thought that was really interesting. I don't know, that's just something instructionally to think about.
So we've had lots of conversations
Yeah.
around that.
I figured. that.
Yeah, specifically around the difference between feedback and grading, because grading most often is sorting students into categories, right?
Yeah.
It's an A student, it's an 80 student, and it's whatever. And feedback is, very targeted and purposeful, and like, what did you do well? And what do you have to do different next time to do better, kind of thing. So it should be very specific in
Yeah.
how to improve a skill. And we've had a lot of conversation in past superintendent's conference days about the difference between feedback and grading.
That's good.
Because I think that's how we help students grow. And also feedback cycles, and so these are things that we do discuss. I think, the homework conversation is a much bigger conversation that's going to be one that is, there's a lot of feelings around homework. So it's first has to start with a philosophical discussion about what is the purpose of homework, and why do we why do we assign homework, right? And what are we really trying to, like, what are the goals of homework? So it's a very, very big discussion. And I think it's one of those things that we have to get people on board with the philosophies before we go changing any culture around homework.
I don't even necessarily know if there needs to be a change right now, maybe just a better understanding or communication between parent and teacher. I don't even know that it's administrative level,
But
just.
are we saying, because when the board says, think we need to do a better job of something, whatever. it is,
Oh,
We're basically telling
no,
Caroline and the administration, you're sort
I
of not
think-
doing your
sorry.
job, something's broken.
I wasn't saying that, I'm sorry.
But we need, I know I sound like a broken record on this, but unless there's a problem, I mean, if there's somebody, like, we have 30 parents saying, there's so much homework, all our kids are walking out and they ran away from home, and and they're not doing anything about it, that's when we have to oversee a solution. But
Yeah, I apologize.
careful when we say we need to do a better job, we need to do a different, because quite honestly, I don't know what they do.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have any kids in school, I'm sort of in the school, but knowing that there's an issue now, hey, here's some good information. I don't know if we're doing that or not, but it came out of this session. That's one thing, like, hey, they suggested these things and these things. And then handing that over to administration is really the way we're supposed to.
Yeah, that, when I said we need to do, and I was speaking as a collective. We parents, so I'm speaking as a parent there. Parents, I believe, need to do a better job at communicating with teachers when their child's having a problem, and maybe seeking the expectation. What is the expectation of homework from a teacher? So it was not all
Okay.
at all.
Yeah, and speaking as parents, that's cool.
Yep.
Speaking as board members, that's saying we have a problem with the administration or the teachers or the counselors or something.
Yep.
We just have to be
Not at all.
walk, and I know it's difficult. Because we've all got things we want to see, for our kids and our grandkids and our, anyway.
I'm sorry, and then just wanted to say, for the point about the care, I don't know if that's something, Chris, I mean, maybe that's something that could be taken care of in a health class, like a health program that is offered. I don't know if that's just for high school. Is that kind of something? Is that what you referred to? Like
I was really just trying to summarize. It
Oh,
wasn't at all saying go do any of this. I was summarizing what I heard as I was sitting in my dining room. So that's what I was doing.
Oh.
So don't take whatever parts might pique your interest, and that's where I'll leave it. There's no direction coming from me. I want to be clear.
They were a good group, weren't they? The number. Yeah. All right. No questions from the public. Anything? You know, that's the second time. In like this many meetings.
We should ask her what topics she wants to discuss, so once we hit it, discuss it, we can ask them.
I mean, it's okay if they want to sit, let's,
150 people.
I mean, are we assuming-
yeah.
End up getting.
I mean, if you look at it, the questions are supposed to be related to agenda items. If we haven't reviewed the agenda items, what are they gonna ask questions about? And I know it's, you know, whatever it is, quarter to 10, it's 9:45, but I mean, I don't know what else to do. And like I said, you don't wanna, you know. All right, well. All right, and nothing online, yeah, okay. Future agenda items. Just. Read
I
it,
have
Dan.
a question about future agenda items. Do we, if I want to, for example, talk about getting on that free lunch vote and advocating for that, do we need to vote on that to be a next agenda item?
Oh, no, you don't, to put something on the agenda, no, you don't have to, we can, if that free lunch thing is something that we as board want to. You know, discuss, where did it end up, how much do we think it would cost? We can put that on a future agenda, item. We don't really need to vote on anything.
And then would I just like email Cheryl about that or?
No, we can do it right now, if that's what you want to do. I mean, you can always email Carol.
So I thought,
That's right, that's right.
I thought we could say like you voted.
Our little policy
So-
computer in the corner.
So why don't we can open that up for, you know, assuming there's something sort of a direction we want to take. Or that's being proposed. We can put that on a future meetings. Probably if we're gonna do it, I assume we need to put it in the budget, so. It would probably be, we wouldn't be able to do it until this summer at the earliest, right?
Maybe,
I think.
do you mean putting it in the budget, or, because I feel like there was some rah-rah around trying to get people to change their minds about
The letter.
paying for
Yeah,
it, not us paying for it, but they were giving us free lunch for so long and now they're not.
correct.
And
Yeah.
now prices of everything are through the roof. There's probably kids that are not eating, so what can we do either as a
why
school or with,
Why don't we just, we'll put it on as a discussion item, like. What's the current status? What do we think? You know, is the board willing to go to bat for additional money to pay for this thing, and the grants that we can use? And then hopefully we can come to some sort of a, hey, I don't think we can do it, or why don't we see if we can't use money from here to pay for it for the rest of the year?
And
Okay.
the second thing I would want to put on there is for getting ready for like lobby day, if that's something we as a board want to participate in or go down for, or what views we might have on any given issue, like maybe the DCCC thing. I don't know if that's something for the legislative committee to discuss and bring back.
Well, if it's got to do with lobbying, I would think it would start with the legislative committee, I would think.
So
The Dutchess Community College thing, I think that's. They're gonna get enough heat. I wouldn't get carried away, because I mean, on the one hand, we don't want Dutchess Community College to get aggravated with us. But treating it as like having all of Dutchess County School Board Association hammer it, and then have the superintendents hammer it. I mean, we don't even, honestly, we don't even know, is that a $10 fee? Or is this, I know. But how big is the right mass?
Just making sure you know.
But yeah, let's put it on. Sorry,
Want it on the 22nd.
well, we've got the budget calendar. Jason's supposed to come on the 22nd.
And special education annual report. Okay.
Yeah, that's gonna be, maybe we could do it at the following one.
Summer
Approve the
service.
budget calendar and then do the. Yeah, actually, we could do it before the budget calendar review piece, because. Then we can start talking about how do we get it in the budget, if that's what we want to do. Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah, you don't, if you guys, and that's the whole point of this one section, if there's something you want on the agenda. Because that also lets us, if we've got 5 major topics. And we want to throw another one on there, we can shove some of them out. It all depends on how critical they are, like. We know what the calendar is for the budget. Got to get all these other things in line before that goes out.
We also need to invite the soccer team and the engine.
Oh, yeah. Well, the 22nd. That's the week before Thanksgiving, so that's probably a bad meeting. Everybody's busy and no one.
If you did it on the 29th.
Yeah, it would work out wonderfully, but I wouldn't want to, honestly, I wouldn't want to impact Jen. Maybe how about why don't we do that on the 6th? I mean, that doesn't usually take that long.
No.
Like, not at all. No.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, yeah, let's put that one on. All right, we have a motion to go to executive session for. But before we do that, we may come back from executive session with new actions that need to be taken in public. Once we finish the executive session, so there may be actions taken after this. With that, do I have a motion to go to executive session? Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. Any against? 5 minutes?
I brought some